A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web-screen dictors. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, pass fail safe, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
All right, that's our cue to start and do the speaky, talky stuff.
Here we go. I can speak.
Are you ready to do that? Can you make your speaking mouth work for this?
There's noises. Isn't that good enough?
I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I hear stuff coming out your mouth, so it's fine. Or through your gas mask, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think when we talk about gas masks now, and when I look at your avatar, I just think of the Eternaut or Eternaut. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. That Netflix show that's set in Argentina.
Did you watch it?
Started watching. Yeah, well, I've watched like the first 3 episodes of it so far. It's not bad. Not bad.
Does it?
Yeah,
you sort of having the same experience I mentioned? Like, 'cause I don't know if you've gotten to what you could consider the twist yet, but I was like, this is good. It's just a little slow.
It's a bit slow so far. Yeah. But I mean, I'm kind of liking the characters. I like how, so far at least, the hero isn't like your sort of young, chisel-jawed 25-year-old. He's just like a grumpy old man. It's great, you know? So, no, it's an intriguing premise. I'll be interested to see where it goes. But so far, I kind of like it. Yeah, I must admit. Anyway, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. But welcome, everyone, to Open Bar 147. Good to have you all here, and we've got some interesting stuff we're going to be talking about tonight, particularly 28 years later. It's one of my big hopes for this year, actually, in terms of good movies. So we'll discuss, now that we've all seen it, whether it lives up to expectations. But first of all, MauLer, are you ready for some facts?
I really want some facts.
I can tell.
I can tell you every week.
Just like the rest of Open Bar is just a complete, you know, climax after this, yeah. All right, what stuff happened in 1947 then to match up with our number? Well, the Cold War began with the Truman Doctrine, which was aiming to curb the spread of communism, particularly in Eastern Europe. So that was when the Cold War officially began, 1947.
Damn commies.
I know. Hate them all. India and Pakistan gained independence from British rule. That didn't lead to any long-term problems. Also, the UN decided to partition Palestine, leading to the creation of Israel. I foresee no problems with that.
It's going to be great, yeah.
They also saw the launch of the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe after World War II, which was kind of a neat thing. It allowed Western Europe to recover very, very quickly and rebuild its economies. Not so much Eastern Europe. The Soviets weren't quite as interested in that, apparently. But, you know, that's the way it was. In terms of inventions, stuff that we actually got created in 47, saw the creation of the first transistors, so replacing vacuum tubes. In terms of electronics. So it led to smaller, faster, and more efficient electronic devices and sped on the creation of computers. But I don't know, man. I think vacuum tubes look cool. They look good.
They do. Know? It's true.
What else did we see here? Yeah. The first proposal was put forward for cellular telephones. Whoa. Can you believe it? In 1947. Interestingly, from Douglas Ring, of all people.
Douglas Ring.
Yeah, I'll give you a ring. He proposed this hexagonal cellular network structure, which was a foundational concept for mobile phone technology.
Did you ever see the film Cellular?
I did not see that, no.
It's like Kim Basinger is the main star, I think. But weirdly, it's got Jessica Biel, William H. Macy, Chris Evans, and Jason Statham in it. It's like, holy fuck.
That's an eclectic cast right there.
Yeah.
Anything with Jessica Biel, I kind of appreciate. You know, she's
you know, you like to see her around. She's still working, I think. I don't think I've seen anything with her in for the past 10 years.
She was everywhere in the 2000s. Like, she was going to be the next big thing, and she had the physique. She could have definitely done action movies. Just never quite took off. I don't know what happened.
The premise of the film is she's trapped in an attic and she calls someone on her cellular phone and it ends up reaching just Chris Evans and his daily running around doing things, and she has to guide him to her through like very limited facts. I remember thinking it wasn't terrible. So there's that.
Well, okay, there you go.
There you go.
All because of these guys, Douglas Ring back in the 1947.
Thank you, Douglas Ring.
Thank you. Also, in 1947 saw the invention of the AK-47, beloved by communist militias everywhere.
Iconic.
Yeah, I mean, what 80s action flick would be complete without an AK-47? But yeah, one of the most widely produced assault rifles of all time, designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in terms of movies, because that's kind of what we're about here. August of that year saw the creation of the Edinburgh International Film Festival for the first time ever. It's actually one of the most long-running film festivals in history. It was also the beginning of the blacklisting in Hollywood. Because the Cold War was kicking off, this is when you started to see the sort of McCarthy-era investigations into people. And it says here the United States House of Representatives votes to approve the citations for contempt of Congress against the Hollywood 10, which were basically actors and directors who refused to answer questions about their communist ties. So there you go. And that's when the hunt for them began. Yeah, and a lot of people ended up having their careers like basically terminated because of that. Yes, and in terms of famous people who were born that year, Arnold Schwarzenegger was born in 1947. So well done, 1947. Give us the best action hero ever. Also saw David Bowie, Larry David. Yes. Barbara Bach, still one of my favorite Bond girls. James Woods, Sam Neill, whose scream I still use in a lot of my videos. It's just perfect. Glenn Close and Edward James Olmos. They were all born in 1947. So there you go. There's my factoids.
We did it.
That's the best I've got for
defeated
you.
Another year.
Yeah. Anyway, I've bored you long enough. Let's get some people in so we can talk about some stuff and things.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Little Platoon, the Despot of Antrim, and Erin Underwood. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Good.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No, good to have you here. Yeah, and I'm sorry that you guys had to sit backstage and listen to all that, but there you go. I've illuminated your lives with some facts and history and stuff. So you knew some things you didn't know before you got here.
Do we do modern facts on this show? Like, I just found out that Ethan Klein is planning to sue like everybody on Twitch, and they
Why?
Some of them have replied that they're just going to sue him back, and it's just like, all right, suing for everybody, yay!
How many of these people
sure.
understand how the law works? Just out of interest,
the only
does
one
Dennings
that-
know how the law works?
What are the...
Certainly not. She doesn't know how oxygen works. I would say that the key fact here is that he would be the one to know most about it. So I would say I'd probably take it somewhat seriously from him if he was threatening to sue me, because he's the only one that's been through it.
What is he suing people for? What is their crime?
He's got a
against
video
them?
about it. I haven't seen it yet, but that's supposed to be the big internet news of the day, that he's suing them all. I'm guessing Hassan, Denims, Frogan, Casey Tron. I'm not sure.
Oh no! Don't hurt Hassan. We love him.
And I mean, you know, he's like, your time is up. He's gonna get him. So let's see how that goes.
Sure. Okay. Well, more than ever, I'm glad I'm not on Twitch. So that's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about we talk about some stuff that's been happening this week? Are you guys ready for this?
Fine, I guess.
Yes.
We definitely.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to talking about 28 years later, but I'm going to do one other thing first, because I know some people don't want to get it spoiled for them, and we will inevitably go into spoilers at some point. So you don't have to worry, I'm not doing it just yet. Yeah, one thing that's been in the news this week, Kathleen Kennedy has been lobbying the Academy for an honorary Oscar, or Lifetime Achievement Oscar for Bob Iger, and it's not gone down too well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly because he owns ABC, which is the network which broadcasts the Oscars, which, you know, you could kind of see that as a conflict of interest. And also, Wow, yeah, the guy who's overseen the destruction of what Marvel, Star Wars, pretty much any property that they've taken on at this point. They're slowly churning their way through the Fox properties as well. Is this really the guy that you want to see get a Lifetime Achievement Oscar?
It's kind of a strange situation because he's also, whether he meant to or not, overseen a lot of the destruction of the Disney properties too. It's such a weird moment in time. And what a strange, I don't know, campaign to do for your boss in such a situation. It just seems like a really bad idea and not a well thought out plan. Because if it backfires, it's just gonna make her boss look real bad, real bad.
Also, like of all the people to recommend me for an Oscar, like I can't think of anyone worse than Kathleen Kennedy. Like,
No, I mean, she's not
arguably the worst.
exactly. You wonder
It's
though
got to be
whether like
detrimental.
how
Yeah.
much of it is like internal politics. If you're in trouble with like your day job, for example, and like you've not turned out a successful, hypothetically, film in a major Star Wars franchise for many, many years at this point, maybe some people are starting to ask questions at the top about how long you should be allowed to remain in charge. And if you want to curry favor, maybe like standing up and saying, hey, I think my boss is the best man in the universe and deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, that might be like some part of the calculation. He'll thank her for thanking him or thinking of him.
I mean, yeah, like optically, it's kind of like Joseph Stalin recommending you for a humanitarian award. It's just it doesn't feel right, man.
Yeah.
Is there precedence for anything like it? I mean, like obviously, like honorary awards do happen from time to time. If like a person or a thing is not worthy of an award, an excuse will be found to give them one.
Sure. And yeah, I don't know. It kind of feels like in the past it's happened quite organically. And it's most of the time when you do see it, it's like, oh yeah, I can understand why that particular actor got given the award. Like maybe not the greatest performer ever or whatever, like, but like through their body of work over the course of like, you know, a very long career, they kind of deserve that Lifetime Achievement Oscar. I'm just going to like bring up some of the people that have received them just for reference, and you can see.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now, and one thing that strikes me is that there are very few people who are here purely because they were executives or businessmen. So, for example, 2025, Tom Cruise, Quincy Jones, composer, Mel Brooks, director, Samuel L. Jackson, David Lynch, director, people like that. I don't see any sort of just executives or CEOs in here. It's all actor, director, composer, animator. These people are all artists, they're not just businessmen. So I think it'd be fairly unprecedented to give it to a guy who's doing it just because he is a successful sort of business corporate politician. I mean, that's what Bob Iger is. He's an excellent corporate politician, but he's not an artist.
No, and you could argue that like his work, quote unquote, at Disney, especially as the head of Disney, has done more damage to the film industry on balance than it has helped it over the past decade or so.
Remember, he said that it was the Marvel's failure was because they needed more supervision. So more of him would have made that actually a pretty good film.
Also, this year,
according to his autobiography,
Pixar have just spent $300 million on a movie called Elio. And according to Film Threat, I haven't seen it. Maybe it's a masterpiece, but according to Film Threat, it's the worst Pixar movie ever made.
Which is saying something, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny.
$million.
I was at a screening just last night, and some friends of mine, because I missed that movie because I was out on leave, and they're like, "Oh no, you're lucky you didn't see that one." And I was like, "Oh my God, was it that bad?" And they're like, "Don't even watch it." So, I mean, it might be great for little kids, but I don't think it goes beyond that little group. And if that's the kind of product you're making in your studio, I think you really have to question, you know, what is your studio actually doing? You're wasting money, and you're not benefiting your company.
Yeah, not just that. Captain Cape Shit, Brave New World, then Elio, and fucking Snow White and the 7 CGI abominations. Well done, Bob. Here's an Oscar.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll
if
get
they
a
were like,
Razzie or something.
I think if
they're like,
he'd
it's for your life's work, and it's like, yeah, but it's not looking good right now.
I know, and the longer you stay there, the more that scale tips against your favor. You know, like
Mhm.
you're producing more and more shite that's like weighing it down. And I think if he'd
Yeah.
left and stayed retired when he stepped down as CEO of Disney, he probably would have been a shoo-in for something like this. It's like, oh, okay, you did oversee like major expansion of the company. You bought up loads of properties, rather than creating new stuff of your own, whatever. But yeah, you could have left on a relative high. Now it's like, oh god, you're actually a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
How do
Well,
you
and
pay
didn't he
out?
come in to try to save the company after? I can't even remember who the last
Bob
guy was.
Chapek was the lighter, but then
yeah.
Chapek, I think, was Bob Iger's appointed successor. So he chose the guy who almost drove the company into the ground. That didn't go well. Also, he didn't properly leave, and then he came back and continued his long and proud tradition of continuing to fuck up the company. So
He was a patsy, right? That's what
yeah.
everyone seems to
Oh
think.
yeah, god, yeah. Like
Because there was that expose, wasn't there, about like he kept his own private office in like the top of the Disneyland castle, like he's Emperor Palpatine. He has his own throne room at the top of the castle
because he had a better bathroom. Apparently, he had his own
Yeah.
private bathroom and stuff. And it's like, God, it's so petty. It's like
Chapek-
something out of The Office.
JPEG was barely in. It seemed to me that like Iger was like, okay, we've done it ceremonially. All right, now we can blame him for everything. Let's get me back.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
okay,
didn't he step down like when COVID and stuff hit? And it's like, okay, we're gonna let this fucking clueless idiot absorb all the negative PR and like the downturn in profits and stuff, and then I'll come back to save the day.
Had Iger stayed out permanently, we might have been discussing right now that he may have taken Disney into a much better direction. Had he stayed or something, it'd be like, well, at least we know that wouldn't have happened now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's really sad is I grew up watching Disney. I actually was a Disney kid. I loved a lot of those old Disney shows, everything from Pete's Dragon to the Apple Dumpling Gang, like those really old shows that were like fun. And you saw that castle, you heard the music, and you got this sense of wonder and excitement whenever those sounds and those visions came on the screen. And now when you look at a Disney film, it's like the upside down. Like, what happened? And is there any chance to turn that around? I would love it if they could, but I don't know. And I don't know that if we're even having this conversation, is the person at the top of the food chain worthy of an honorary award? I don't think the answer is yes. I don't.
Do you think there's a reciprocal element to this as well? Like Kathleen Kennedy's thinking, okay, if I recommend Bob for an Oscar and he gets it, like he's going to recommend me for a Lifetime Achievement Oscar too. Because I don't know, man. It feels like she'd be that narcissistic. She's going to want that before she retires.
But like she's probably more deserving of one, is the thing, in that she's actually been largely responsible for the creation of some really, really great movies, like on the back end of things as a producer for some fantastic films.
Well,
she is connected to the art world of filmmaking in a way that he is.
Saying she's responsible for the creation of those movies
that was
a bit of a stretch. It's like she oversaw like the sort of the logistical aspects of putting them together.
Well, if she's responsible in the sense that she deserves something for it, then I think the same argument could be made for him. That he's around when good things happened.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that somewhere in my mind there is this wall, and it might just be invisible, and I'm pretending that it exists. But there is a wall between, say, working as an executive producer on Jurassic Park and Spielberg saying we need this to happen and this to happen and this to happen for this work of art to be created, and Kathleen Kennedy organizing that, making that happen in concert with the creative people making the decisions. A difference between that and Iger, who sits at the top saying, we will make this brand acquisition, we will put this money here, we will do that and the other. One of them just seems completely removed from the question of artistic production the way the other one doesn't. And it's almost like giving Iger an award for like an Oscar, an honorary Oscar is confirming what has basically gone wrong with not just Disney, but so much of Hollywood. It has now been entirely corporatized, to the extent that we are now rewarding people whose job it is to push money around a table, as opposed to have anything to do with what it takes to make a movie.
Right.
I think with Kennedy, if you want to pick out the big achievements of her career, it would be her producer roles on all those like Spielberg movies and stuff back in the day. in which case it's essentially like a best project manager of the decade award or something. Like that's kind of what she would be getting there.
Well, Drinker, does that raise the question of, if they want to have these honorary lifetime achievement awards, those really, and they want them to be for business people or administrative types, they need to like separate those out and be like, hey, let's have an administrative lifetime achievement award for people who had a vision to help bring these things to life, but then also a lifetime achievement award for the artistic direction for people
The thing
who
is,
just never did.
that won't appeal to them because the problem with separating it out is that Bob Iger won't get to go on stage and accept an award in front of people that people recognize. Like he won't be on the same stage as the Robert Downey Jr. He won't be getting like a huge amount of eyes to the extent eyes are still on the Oscars ceremony. He won't be getting eyes on him. And if it's a parceled out best corporate achievement award where maybe they can pay a celebrity to turn up, but it's not going to be as interesting to the public.
Yeah,
true.
I think as well, like there's that interesting I guess line between no, fuck it. I'm not even going to pretend I had
You tried. You tried, man.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought there. I'm not even going to pretend that I was going to go somewhere logical with that. So forget it. It's okay. But no, I apparently it's not received too well, particularly by people within the Academy, because ultimately what you've got here is a studio head utilizing their position of power to try to get one of their friends an award that they don't particularly deserve. So I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. And if anything, it's probably going to hurt his case for actually getting one, because now it's just tainted by this air of like corporate meddling and trying to like use leverage in order to get something that someone doesn't really deserve. So yeah, I think it's funny that I don't know, someone like Kennedy still believes that she's got that popular influence to actually make these things happen. Feels like that's declining with each passing year.
Grease some wheels in the back end, maybe, right? She's probably got some poles, some strings she can do some stuff with.
Yeah,
you'd have to assume so. I mean, I guess that's the reason why she's still got a job. Like she has some kind of whether it's knowing things that people would rather keep hidden, or whether it's just having been in the industry for so long, she kind of knows everyone. Not sure, but there's limits to it.
Even if this nomination came from a really good place, like say she's doing it for altruistic reasons, she's from the good of her heart, she wants to do this for a man she really believes in. It just also shows bad judgment. You know what I mean? Like even if it came from a really good place, it shows her bad judgment in doing it because of those conflicts of interest that are very, very visual to everyone looking at that campaign. And so it's like she's in a lose-lose situation here. Either she's doing it for her own selfish reasons and that's bad judgment, or she's trying to do it for altruistic reasons and do something good, and that's bad judgment too. Like she should have just handed this off to someone else so that if she really cared about this, it would have gone down differently. It just makes her look bad all the way around.
It does. And if anything, we should maybe reverse the process. Given she said she will finally leave when she can say she's left on a high, we should probably be trying to source an award for Kathleen Kennedy. It's like a thank you and fuck off award. So she gets it and she leaves.
That's why I was trying to big up Andor season 2 so much. It's like, okay, that was an absolute triumph, Kathleen. You've saved Star Wars. You can go now. That's your win.
We got to big up Ahsoka season 2 next, okay?
Yeah.
Get it right.
It's probably going to be Mandalorian and Grogu, isn't it? That's going to be the thing. Because
we got to review that well. That should be like, yay, I did it. A Star Wars movie that people like.
I can't stomach the idea of a whole fucking movie of that little green shit in it. I just no, just make it go away.
It might be the best of all possible worlds there, because it's taking the place of what would have been an entire 4th season of that little green shithead, which would have been longer and more painful to cover. So at least we get it all out of the way in one go this time.
It's two things that I'm thoroughly bored of, right? It's Grogu and it's fucking Pedro Pascal. So like in one movie, God, that's a tough sell, man. It's a tough sell.
It's sad. It's funny in their separate places. I don't mind them that much, but we're oversaturated so much. Like it would have just been better to have a Mandalorian movie that focused on Mandalorian stuff. Like we don't need to have Grogu in every freaking thing. We need a break. We need to take a pause. Like
I could
we need
totally
pause.
believe someone in some meeting said the exact opposite. Like, we need Grogu in everything, damn it. Get him on everything.
When you've got the one thing that you can merchandise and it's actually somewhat successful, of course you're going to exploit the shit out of that. Why wouldn't you?
I'm sure they're looking to team up Ahsoka and Grogu, which they already did, technically. At one
He's
point,
going to be the thread. He's going to be the real thread that binds together the new Star Wars. Just this little green asshole.
So
every new character is the thread that binds it together.
Yeah. It's going to be determined by whichever one has the most merchandising potential, because truly, I don't think many people are buying Ahsoka Tano action figures at this point, or Rose Tico. So maybe Grogu is the way forward. I don't know. To pick up on the interesting news, breaking news that you hit us with earlier, MauLer. H3 is suing, made a declarative statements that their reactions are meant to bypass people having to watch the H3 original upload. So what they try, so it's like people are re-uploading their stuff, so that people aren't watching the original.
This is a little bit crazy because, like, I'm assuming some know, some probably don't. But years back, I want to say a year and a half or something, I don't even know. There was something called what I think was named React Gate, where a whole bunch of people got called out for basically stealing videos. Like, I'm assuming some of you know, but the way it would work is you stream yourself watching a video, and you could eat food, you could leave, you could do anything, and the videos themselves were edited by talented people. So it basically worked as Denham's described it, you were a curator of content, and that was what you were adding to the world, as opposed to just you were stealing everything. The worst of this, arguably, depends on your piece of point of view, was there was like a Hell's Kitchen obsession where people were just watching the entire show, and they weren't saying anything, they weren't doing anything, they were just collecting checks from Twitch while streaming a TV show, which is highly illegal, obviously, but there was no punishment because Twitch was so badly regulated. But one of the things when we covered loads of these creators, because they stole Jay's video, who's a big old friend of EFAP and other shows, I suppose, we got pretty pissed off about it. We covered them. And one of the things that kept happening was they basically said everything that would need to be said to be hyper punished in court. And when we were covering it, we were like, well, you're lucky that none of us are going to sue you, because if we did, we'd probably have a pretty good case. You know, the whole, even if I was sued by like Disney or any of us, there's a chance they could screw us over big time, depending on how their lawyers argue the case. In my case, they absolutely would, because I usually end up showing the entire movie in my 7-hour like breakdown, which if you can argue I've replaced the film, then that gets me fucked. So the fact that it's like 50-50 with someone like me who's desperately trying to be fair use, when it's someone who's basically stealing the entirety of the content, admits to that, and then says like they're happy to make money off it and screw the people who it doesn't matter, who cares. It looks like he's pissed off with them enough that he's going after them for this, and that he's probably talked with lawyers excessively, and they've probably collected enough evidence. There's been I've seen people talking about this, and I've had some messages that apparently even one of the episodes of EFAP is cited in the case. So this is going to be an interesting little event if it actually works out.
You might have to go and testify, MauLer.
I doubt that, but maybe maybe we'll see some interesting things happen, because he seems serious about this, Ethan Klein. Which, by the way, I am totally fine with them having legal repercussions for stealing YouTuber content. It's fine with me.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Well, you guys, you have all seen 28 Years Later. It's probably one of the few movies this year that I was quite hyped about. I saw the trailers; they looked excellent. It was great to have Danny Boyle coming back to direct, and there was a lot of expectations on this one, and now we've seen it. What did you guys think?
Great, I loved it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see Danny Boyle and Alex Garland together again. They really brought it. They brought it with this film.
All right.
I'm kind of interested. What what did they bring? I'm not trying to lead you with that question. I'm genuinely interested because I'm unsure about this film.
I'm trying not to give any spoilers early
Yeah.
on. Basically, I guess what I really liked about this film is that it felt, like 28 weeks later was a little bit annoying to me, whereas 28 days later was a gem. And this one feels like a true continuation of that film. And we see the same world, we see the same techniques, we see the same visuals used. It felt like a continuation of that original story, and that they actually found some new ways to talk about this world that we haven't seen them do here before. And granted, they do reuse a few zombie tropes here and there, but overall, I felt like they really succeeded in making this feel like a continuation rather than a rehash or a redo or a cash grab.
I will say I liked it overall, very much so. I thought the first act was absolutely superb. I thought that was some of the most tense, on the edge of your seat directing that I've seen in quite a while. It really built that atmosphere of dread and anticipation. The movie kind of takes a bit of a swerve around the midpoint, and it goes in a different direction with not a whole new character, but a character that I didn't think was going to have as much of an importance in the narrative as they did. It gets into slightly shaky ground when a soldier shows up, shall I say, and it goes into slightly not goofy territory, but just a little bit like it doesn't feel quite as polished. It doesn't feel quite as hard hitting when he gets to that point, and then it ends on a very odd note, which I will discuss with you guys a little bit later, because like this little initial section, I want to keep it as spoiler free as we can, so we'll speak in generalities for the time being, but we will give you a warning when we get into spoiler territory. But yeah, it musters up some genuinely great emotional moments. I think there's a lovely story between the main character and one of his parents, and yeah, it has some how can I say this without spoiling it? It has some very poignant moments in it. I'll say that much. They are doing weird things with the infected, though, that I don't. Some of it I like, some of it I really don't. But we'll get into that later.
I would say I have that view on essentially every element. There's things that I'm like, ooh, that's really cool, new and interesting and engaging. And there's some choices where I was like, what? Like, okay, I guess. Sure. And kind of to be back on what you just said, I thought the film, when watching the first act, was going to a certain place, and then second act was like, no, we're not going there, we're going somewhere else. Like, okay, fine, I'm still, let's go. And then third act was like, we're still going to a different place. I was like, all right, and then it sort of ended, and I was
and
like,
the ending was like,
yeah, that is like, I think Americans are going to really struggle to understand the meaning of that, because like British people get what those characters were dressed like immediately.
I'm actually not sure, because like I'm technically British, and I don't actually have a clue what the ending is. Like, it's a very it's tonally so jarring. I think maybe putting me off everything else around it, but I didn't quite spot even what they were dressed as.
Really,
it's bookended. Okay. So this, I would really struggle to see. I thought there were two problems with the movie, which I don't see as problems outright. They were more like trade-offs with slightly negative aspects. But I can't discuss them without spoilers. But that ending scene, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's thematically relevant, and it's part of a bookend, which I quite liked.
Definitely.
Sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'll get into that in a little bit. I will say, to pick up on the point you made, Erin, about this one feeling like more of a continuation of the first movie. This one and this isn't a spoiler, but like the opening, the title crawl just straight up erases the second film. Or erases the relevance of it.
We can talk about this, because I've heard people say this, and I saw Jeremy John say that 28 weeks later got erased. 28 weeks later has footage in this film
I
is
know,
referenced.
like, in terms of like the overall impact of the storyline, it pretty much says like, yeah, so the contagion spread beyond the UK, but then they dealt with it, and so it's just back to the status quo that
Yeah.
was
Right.
established at the end of
Well,
the
They beat it
It's the
back.
story. It's telling you that the story you thought you might get as the sequel to 28 Weeks Later is not the story you're getting here. Because like 28 Weeks Later, obviously, like it ends with the implication that we are going to be spreading basically to continental Europe. This thing which was isolated to England is no longer isolated to England. Of course, this creates significant problems for the rest of the world, and that wasn't the story they wanted to tell. Yet, maybe we'll get some of that at a later point. But at the moment, it's sort of there's a bit of a reset in conditions, because that was evidently something I think even Alex Garland has said about the 28 Weeks Later, that like it shows him the difference between a movie that had to be made because another one needed to be made and a movie that had to be made because it should have been made. So like there wasn't maybe quite the same interest level from Garland and Danny Boyle in going back to it. Alex Garland, I think, is probably my biggest problem with this entire movie, in the sense that I still don't know whether there's a there. And that's always the thing with Alex Garland's writing. You don't know going in whether you're going to get something which is surprisingly tight, well done, and has something to say, like Ex Machina, for example, or something which is so much dumber than it thinks it is, in the case of Devs, or something which is just empty and cynical, which is like Civil War.
Yeah.
So, and you're never entirely sure what you'll get. And with this one, I got to the end of this film, and I'm still not entirely sure what I've got. There's some brilliant individual moments, some great character moments as well. As has been mentioned, the relationship between kids and I think both parents even have some really lovely payoffs to them. The emotional payoffs are great, wonderfully shot. All of this stuff is there. It seems to be starting to have something to say about like almost spiritualism, not to get too specific about it, which is a very different tone from the other two movies. And that's clearly like the direction in which we've gone. But I still don't know exactly what it's trying to say or when it's going to get around to saying it, because it's kind of a part one film, right? Part two,
right?
Yeah,
It's part one.
The really terrifying thing is that part two is going to be directed by Nia DaCosta, and that spells fucking death for this. Like, why they gave this to her, I have no fucking idea.
I don't understand. Like, why do they do that? A director has a vision when you have a part one and a part two. And I mean, anyone who's a storyteller knows that when you start a story and then you hand it off halfway through, you just don't know if you're going to stick the landing. And that vision for that landing suddenly changes and it becomes this moving object. And that's like the most disappointing news that I heard regarding this new addition to the franchise, because I did like the setup and I felt like if they followed these footsteps, if they followed those story beats, we would have some of those answers that Platoon is looking for. But what we're getting right now is just the setup, and now I'm worried, like I like the setup, but will they be able to deliver? I just don't know now.
Yeah. I'm very wary of what I can say before we get into spoiler territory.
I'm really struggling to say anything about the movie and about what I liked about it, because anything I say, like I really love this, and this, it kind of spoils certain aspects of it. And I think it's a really great movie to go into completely blind and just enjoy it and let it come at you, because there's a lot there. There's a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like the different it's basically the evolution of the infected, because I don't think that's spoiling anything for people. You kind of got that from the trailers, that the infected are changing now.
One of the things they had to deal with, if 28 weeks was to stay canon, is they starve after 5 weeks, I think they said.
Yes.
So it's like, 28 years later, it's like you're going to have to come up with something. And they've moved around the answer to that question. I'm not 100% clear on exactly what we're supposed to, because there's like different classes now of zombies.
Yeah, it feels like a video game in a way, like
a little bit.
Or even a graphic novel, because there's a lot of very, very stylistic elements around the new things that they introduce that don't quite have an analog in either of the previous two movies. It is like sometimes it's almost like reading a panel from like what I imagine like a Walking Dead graphic novel or something like that. It's a very, very new channel. I understand why, because it comes out at a really interesting time, whereas 28 Days Later is obviously responsible for reviving an entire genre of zombie films, showing that there are new things you can do with them. By the time 28 Weeks Later came out, that idea had already started to get mainstreamized anyway. And then, of course, The Walking Dead was only a couple of years away. Since then, we've had a lot of zombie stuff. We've seen a lot of what you can do with this genre. So it's like, what can you do going back to this particular franchise, which we haven't already seen in any of the other zombie things that have come out? In a way, I thought that they kind of dropped the ball almost with the redesigns for some of these, the infected. Is it even right to call them the rage monsters anymore? Because like rage isn't really a thing. Like with the redesigns for those, that was almost
seem
like an
enraged
element
very
scheme.
much.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I was always happy to call them zombies anyway. I don't think it's that big of a deal, even though they're specific in what creatures they are. But it's funny because they get referred to as zombies in this film.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting distinction, isn't it? Because they are not walking corpses. They can be killed just in the same way that you or I could be killed. If you shoot us in the heart or the head, like that'll take them down.
So I think that's actually what's really interesting about what they did with the story, with the science of the virus. And I do think the story was actually inspired from maybe their experiences with COVID, because we got, like, the world got this almost primer on how a virus spreads, how a virus changes, how a virus mutates, and its impact on a human body as it changes and spreads and mutates. And so what we ended up getting in this film, there may be other kinds of zombies out there that we don't know about at this point as well. We get 3 different types, and they explain it in how the virus, as it evolved, interacts with, what was it, hormones or something?
Yeah.
So they do give a reason why different zombies change in different ways. But I do think, and I'm trying like heck, and I don't know, I guess it's okay to swear. I'm trying like hell not
it's
to
open
say,
bar. You can swear as much as you want. Trust me.
I'm really trying like hell not to give spoilers, but the change of the virus and its impact on the human host really does change the way that the body responds. And that's what they're doing here. They're showing us that perhaps there's a divergence in human evolution because of this virus. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Well, again, it raises the question of like, where's it ultimately heading? Are they going to evolve back into like fairly intelligent beings that, you know, have their own society and stuff? You don't quite know, because there's elements of that here. I did like this chat here. Evolved equals their cocks got bigger. There is some distractingly
bigger.
large wangs.
I think that's
in
an
this
understatement.
Yeah.
a lot of naked zombies running around and lots of flopping.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not even gay, but even I was like, damn, man, that dude is hung. Like, and yeah, they don't scrimp on all that stuff, because like, yeah, I guess at this point, it's almost like a generational thing, isn't it? The rage virus. Like, there will be people infected with it now who weren't even around when society or civilization existed, and so like they've never worn clothes because like they've just been born into that that environment, and that's what you see now with them. So the movie does interesting things with them in that regard. And like, where does all this lead after such a long amount of time?
I almost think, though, on that point, that the movie wants more time to have passed than has. It's 28 years later. It's taking a lot of inspiration from, because it is sort of leaning into these vaguely sort of spiritualist themes. Anyway, it's not a spoiler, I don't think. It's just part of the premise of the movie that this group of villagers is on Lindisfarne. Lindisfarne is an island off Northumbria, which so in real history was this redoubt against effectively like the modernizing world of, I think, the 600s. And so like you had this group of very, very religious Christian monks who lived there, and they were sort of holed up against the massive changes happening in England at that time, up until the point when the Vikings discovered they had loads of treasure, and then they attacked them and killed them all. But so like, we're starting there, and like this group is strictly using almost medieval, well, actually strictly medieval weapons, bows and arrows and knives. That they're farmers, they're hunters, and they're foragers, and they don't really have any knowledge of the outside world at all. To the point where when you do get a discussion between someone from an outside world later on, they play a comic effect on what references someone born in this world doesn't understand, which is fine. I don't necessarily know that the film justifies like just how removed absolutely everything is. Like, I've always had a little bit of a problem with the world state in these films anyway, but for it to be 25 years for this thing to have happened, you have to kind of accept that absolutely nothing ever was airdropped in. Absolutely no one flew over the country. No one provided support by any means at all to anyone in the country. Like they just keep you in a quarantine zone with boats around on the outside. And that is what the movie will justify, to say that, you know, even though 25 years have passed, technically you've progressed 600 years, as it tries to remind you with all the Henry V clips that it throws in.
Yeah, that stuff is interesting because it only happens in the early stages of the movie, really.
Yes.
And it's very prevalent on that first mission. Oh, we've lost Erin. I think she was having issues with her camera, so she'll try and solve that. Yeah, very prevalent there. And they use a lot of that Boots, you know, soundtrack from the trailer, which is all very sinister and effective. And then they kind of move past it, and it just becomes. That's what I mean. Like the film feels like three different movies kind of sandwiched together, and each one is so distinct. But I feel like there's a slight decline in terms of like the quality of each as we progress.
Yeah, like the first third, I was totally on board for what story I was expecting to get in a conventional sense, and then I was like, I'm also okay with going unconventional if you really want to. And I would say the editing is probably going to have that kind of reaction from people, both like, oh, there's some really cool ideas in there, but also some stuff that was just like, I have no idea what that meant, and it's like, that's okay. You don't have to understand everything.
I was getting a bit bored of the whole, like, every time someone gets a headshot, the camera does a freeze frame.
Yeah, because they got those little, isn't it something like, it was called Halo in Sinners, but they've got something like 16 iPhones wrapped around a person, so when they film it, they can move around. I don't know how I feel about that.
It just feels wanky.
To me,
for the sake of being wanky.
Because, yeah, I've seen a lot of people reacting to it as a sort of like, this felt almost... what would be the word? It's like it's almost like, you know, like when you eat too much fucking icing and call it sickly. It's like the film equivalent of that. We're like, I don't think that's necessary, because they had some regular kills at certain points that looked really great.
Yeah.
But some of those ones I was kind of like, why? Like, I'm not sure how much this is helping anything.
Should we go into spoilers now? Because I feel like Despot is chomping at the bit here, and we've given you guys an overall view of this, right? I think the overall assessment would be that it's a pretty decent movie. I think it's probably a worthy follow-up to the first film. I think overall I was more invested in this than I was in 28 Weeks Later. It doesn't get to the level of 28 Days Later. It's not that good.
No.
But I certainly didn't dislike it. So I think they've done an okay job with this one. I don't know. You guys feel similarly?
I guess, yeah. I mean, Weeks I always struggled kind of to get into anyway. 28 Days Later is one of those that I sort of appreciate in a way that I appreciate the Beatles. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it, but I'm like, respect what it did for that entire genre, respect the techniques that went into making it and all of that stuff. I think like this one is less formulaic than that. 28 Days Later almost has kind of like this A-B structure where you get like very rapid fire, very tense, exciting, and scary horror action set piece, followed by characters sitting around in almost surreal niceness and happiness. Sometimes making decisions in those periods, which I don't really think necessarily make a huge amount of sense, like choosing to go through Battersea Tunnel and then having a really good time driving over the tops of other cars, which is an incredibly dumb thing to do in the circumstances, but there you are. This one is less easily defined by its structure, I think, and that might be why it does feel like three different films, that there's not a huge amount of pattern that comes through. Every time you think you understand exactly how the thing's been put together, it goes off in an unpredictable direction. And that's not saying it's a bad thing that it does it, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. You almost want more to connect these three individual film ideas than we get.
All right, we're going to do it. We're going to get to spoilers then.
Warning.
You consider yourselves warned. So where it started to come apart for me was once that Norwegian soldier arrives on the scene. It starts to get into slightly goofy comedy territory where a lot of his dialogue is really like, hey, look at this modern stuff that we have, because this movie is like playing on the idea that like society essentially stopped in like 2002 when the rage virus broke out, right? So like culturally and everything, the UK stopped there technologically as well. The rest of the world didn't though, and so the rest of the world has now the internet and iPhones and all that stuff that we take for granted now. And that guy is one there to give us an introduction to that and give us a state of the world update. I'd show the main characters things like that, but also he allows some retarded stuff to happen. You know, like the moment where the mom goes into the train carriage to help a fucking infected person deliver a baby, which you would never do. This guy just like allows it to happen. Like he should absolutely have gunned her down the moment he saw it. And then he just gets killed in slightly comic fashion, and then they carry his head around for like the next 10 minutes.
I was about to say, you should have prepped that a bit better, because people who haven't seen this film are gonna fucking believe what you just said, even slightly. But that is something that happens, yes.
So
So about that soldier though, the one thing I did appreciate, because I thought he was a little corny and a little too on the nose a little too often, but what he did do is while I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, like, does this mean that the whole rest of the world is watching the British Isles like it's some reality show? I mean, they're not razing it to the ground and killing everything on it to save the world from this rage virus. And they're not dropping supplies and goods to the survivors, which they clearly know are there. So what are they doing? Are they just watching it like it's some entertainment or something? It just made me feel like, wow, the world deserves to be eaten by this virus, because that's like a really shitty thing for the rest of the world to do to the British Isles.
You're 100% right. The world building aspect, I don't think I buy any of that. I think that the idea that we've just got an island on Earth filled with horrifying monsters that we're not going to do anything about, and there's loads of innocent people desperately needing help there, they quarantine it off. It's like the one thing I'll give 28 weeks later is that I could see happening, that gradually some force, likely America, would eventually cleanse all of Britain and get people sorted, but that, you know, it all collapses because of one fucking zombie in that movie, which is insanity. Meanwhile, 28 years later, and they haven't sorted this out. It's like, nah.
Yeah, they would either have nuked it, or they would have sent in all of the troops.
Well,
and
so
just killed everything.
Thing, Drinker, and this bugs me about zombie media. You take, let's say, 10 military men with fully loaded rifles against 7 zombies, and they lose. It's like, no, they don't. They win every time. It's not even close.
It's almost the problem, I think, is easier to get around if you just sort of bake that into the backstory. And the way that, say, like, well, The Walking Dead is obviously a really good example of that. It's easier to accept, I think, when all of it's already happened. You don't have to introduce the reason midway through the story. Even to a degree, 28 days later kind of introduce this as a problem, because you start learning about the quarantine thing midway through the film. That opens up a huge number of questions that, if in the backstory it is just, there was an outbreak, details not particularly precise, we lost, we're living in the aftermath of that, it's a little bit easier to accept the world building sort of consequences. As soon as you introduce quarantine 2/3 of the way through your film, then you start asking the questions about, well, how exactly does that work? And like, why can't they, surely there's a more effective way of dealing with this than the one that they do. This one doesn't, this one I think just carries on that problem. I really love the setting. I love the fact that it is so empty. I love that it's out of London, not just because I hate London, because London has just been done in these films a lot now. It does immensely wonderful, beautiful things with its setting, but it doesn't really withstand a huge amount of scrutiny. The reason for the soldier being a bit incompetent, they try to explain it because he has a little like exposition scene. There's a couple of, as you know, exposition scenes. This isn't one, but it is exposition where he says, well, I didn't know what I was doing with my life, basically, so I stupidly joined the Navy, and here I am. I should have become a delivery driver instead. So, like, he's not competent necessarily. That's what they're
explaining. Well, they got training.
It's annoying though, because it's like they're both, essentially his story is like he was stationed on a Norwegian Navy ship that was patrolling the quarantine zone. It hit a rock or something and sank, and him and a bunch of other guys leapt on a lifeboat and got blown ashore, right? And yet there they are, dressed in full tactical gear, fully armed with assault rifles and stuff. they're supposed to be guys just on the ship. They wouldn't be dressed like that. They wouldn't have that kind of equipment on them. When they're introduced, they look like some kind of tactical assault team that's been sent in, and the operation's gone to shit, and they're running for their lives. This just, it feels like a bit inappropriate, the way he is, the way he acts, the way he's equipped, all that stuff. But for people who are watching this and who haven't seen the movie yet and don't care about spoilers, the thing we were hinting at earlier with the swerve this movie takes structurally is that the main character, he's a young boy. Spike is his name, isn't it?
Yeah, he's 14.
Yeah, so he's living on an island community with his dad and his mom, and they've become like subsistence farmers, basically. He's taken out on his first mission with his dad onto the mainland because they can cross a causeway at low tide. They get into a bunch of adventures along the way where they encounter the different kinds of infected, especially an alpha, which is like bigger and stronger and more intelligent than most of the others, and kind of seems to be able to command them almost. But in the distance, he spots a fire, which means there's other people alive on the mainland. He asks one of the old guys at his community what it is, and he explains that it's a doctor who's like become this crazy recluse. But they need a doctor because his mum is very sick with something. He doesn't quite know what it is, but she's like going a bit insane and suffering from headaches and stuff. So he does something kind of dumb. He distracts everyone, takes his mum back to the mainland by himself, even though he knows how fucking dangerous it is, and he barely escaped with his life, and he wants to go to this doctor so that this guy can heal her. And then along the way, that's when they encounter the Norwegian soldier guy, and that is when they encounter as well the the pregnant infected woman. And this is so dumb. I got kind of angry in the cinema when this was happening. So somehow the mum just wanders off ahead of them, and they just can't catch up to her. She's that fast.
Yeah.
She goes into an abandoned train and finds one of the infected there who's heavily pregnant and is giving birth. And she touches her hands and she like helps her through the birth, and she gives birth to a healthy baby that's somehow not infected with the rage virus. I don't know how it works either. It's
what do you mean? They have a whole line in the movie that explains it for you. It's the magic of the placenta.
The magic of the placenta, yeah. And you think, wow, this is weird. Like the infected are now at the point where they are compassionate for each other because this infected mother held her hands and was just concentrated on giving birth. And you think, oh, wow, they're not even infected with the rage virus anymore. And the moment she gives birth, she then tries to attack them. And then Norwegian soldier man guns her down. And they're left with this baby. Swedish. And I just thought this would never be allowed to happen. Like you would never get near one of these things, even if it's given birth, even if you're a mother yourself and you're seeing one of them giving birth. It's like it's a monster. It will kill you the moment it gets a chance.
Yeah, but
I think there's a couple of sequences in that film that kind of relate the same way, that if you were recalling them to someone who hadn't seen it, they're going to think you're insane. Like if I said they bump into a horde of zombies, they sprint to like their local fast food restaurant that has unfortunately leaked gas in the entire building, and the Swedish guy happens to be on the roof and shoots down at one of the zombies that lights a spark that burns the entire place, that wipes out all the zombies, but not the two survivors. Yeah, and then they team up. It's just like, to list the contrivances here would be insanity. It's I remember just being like, what a strange sequence compared to, to go to the editing a little bit, right? When they first showed the red in darkness and the zombies like moving around in the forest and their eyes having those really like sharp lights, I was kind of hyped for like, oh, we're gonna get a section where they're out of arrows, they desperately need to get from A to B, and between them is like, let's say 7 of these creatures, and that we get that sort of filming technique throughout the whole sequence. I was like, that'd be really creepy. That never happens. It's more so just flashes of in the darkness, which I was really impressed by in terms of like a way to film it, the creative choice. But I was waiting for more of that, and instead getting sequences like that fast food restaurant explosion or the pregnant lady and stuff. I was like, these are very strange choices.
Yeah, I mean, they come from nowhere, which is because. So maybe it might be worth rewinding just a little bit. So basically, the first third of the film, actually no, it's less than a third. The first bit of the film, we'll say, is the kid, is Spike and his dad. They're going out and he's teaching Spike the ropes. Basically, he's this young kid. I think he is only 12. He's younger than normal, but they think he's ready. It's a really, I really love the entire sequence because, you know, the dad is teaching him all these skills. The skills are incredibly important. We know that his mum didn't want him to leave. We know that she's sick, but it's not about that yet. It's about father and son teaching the skills he will need to survive. The connective tissue is that, you know, when he does take his mum out to go to this doctor, I have some things to say about the doctor. We'll get there later. He's using the skills that he's learned from his father to protect the mother visibly, and that they make a point of showing that he's doing exactly what he's been shown how to do, which I really like as connective tissue. That's great stuff. It's where the problem is that when a plot relevant thing needs to happen, that is almost totally disconnected from everything before it. So like having shown how very much that he's taking great care of his mother, he's doing all the things he's learned how to do. He's never taking his eyes off her. He's never going to leave her behind. Then when we do need to suddenly go off in a random direction, she is allowed to disappear. She gets ahead of them. She goes onto a train. She runs into this pregnant, infected thing. She holds out the hands. And this is the worry I have with any Alex Garland script, is that it's going to be excused by some fucking spiritual nonsense. And I don't like that, but that's probably where we're going. The reason in the film is that she is very unwell and sort of hallucinating. And that will be its reason for saying, well, this is why she did that. The how of her doing it is more my concern, because maybe if you'd shown that they had to go onto the train in some other way as an extension of what Spike was doing, he led her there or whatever, he was going to kill the thing, she told him not to. There are ways to make it seem less weird and out of place than it was. But whenever we move the plot forward, we do sort of just discard a lot of the setup and payoff stuff we've been working on, which is a bit frustrating.
Did you guys note that was probably the Alpha's kid? Which I was like,
yes.
how is that?
Well, yeah, clearly.
So
Yeah, because that's what gets him on his revenge trip now. Like, he picks up the dead body and he's like, that's when he goes into full-on rage mode, and he's
because having incapacitated him 2 or 3 times, they leave him alive.
Okay. Yeah, can you guys? Did I miss something? Why did Ray Fiennes say that we got to go before he wakes back up instead of just killing him?
I don't know. I don't
would
honestly
chop his head off, man. Like, just decapitate him.
It honestly seems like that's not a thing, because maybe the movie kind of implies that he's like almost learned to live in harmony with these things. Like, whenever they come near, he'll retreat into his like hidey hole, and so that's fine. And maybe he just like doesn't bother them and they don't bother him too much. But like, that is a clear threat to you. Like, it almost killed you on more than one occasion. Right. You should probably just take it out.
So
there's no real reason not to.
Makes sense. The only explanation that makes sense is that Ralph Fiennes has just gone mad, and he quite clearly has gone mad, because he thinks that he's living in harmony with these things and that they're a kind of people themselves. But he would also have seen that. I mean, he has seen it. It shows you that scene where he's got 150 bodies or something all lined up and he's burning them. So he has seen firsthand the damage that these things do. He knows how destructive they are, and yet he sort of follows them around and studies them and lets them live. So he's clearly gone nuts. And this is actually a theme. This is a recurring dramatic character beat in Danny Boyle movies. His favorite movie is Apocalypse Now, and he does this thing called the Heart of Darkness, I call it, where he takes a character and he makes that character go crazy and kind of imitate Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. Yeah. And Ralph Fiennes in this is kind of the Colonel Kurtz type character. So that's where that comes from. That's what he's going for. Other examples would be, like Jim at the end of the original 28 Days Later. He kind of goes crazy and gets naked and runs around killing people. And there's other examples in other movies that he's done, where The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, he attempted in The Beach.
We did it in Sunshine as well. The captain of the previous
Sunshine,
ship.
yeah.
And
that's another Alex Garland script. So this is definitely better than previous iterations of The Heart of Darkness. Like, The Beach is the worst one with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's if you just want to laugh your ass off, watch Leonardo DiCaprio, ape Colonel Kurtz. So that's what he's going for. It kind of works because it's not over the top, but the movie does suffer a bit from that Alex Garland's really bad habit of theme over substance at times, and the bar theme was the worst example of it. But at the same time, if you think about it from the perspective of the characters, the kid is just a kid and he's terrified. The Swedish guy he's clearly experiencing severe trauma at that moment because he's just lost all of his naval friends and he's terrified for his life. And he's also trying to psychologically process the fact that he is never leaving this quarantined island. So his head is in a million places at once. And then the mother has brain cancer. So she's literally just fucked in the head. The other thing is when they go in and they see this infected giving birth, the Swedish guy might not know she's infected straight away. Like he might think is that infected or is that just a woman giving birth? Because he doesn't know anything about this island.
I think he knows because like he
figures it out.
He is shouting quite consistently, like, get the fuck away from this thing. What are you doing, you insane lady?
On the approach, he doesn't know that, but once he sees her, he knows. But it's a weird angle he's looking at it from. But once he sees, like, that is infected, he does start screaming, which I quite like because it showed his inexperience. He's not familiar with this world. He doesn't understand that when you're in, say, a train tube, you don't start shouting because that's going to attract the infected. I thought that was the worst part of the movie, the contrivance of having these. At the same time, the kid decided to go to the mainland. It just so happens that for the first time in probably ever, a boatload of soldiers washed up on shore. That was awful. That was a really bad plot contrivance. It would have been much better if those soldiers had been sent in as basically with instructions to capture infected because they want to make a vaccine or something like that. That would have made far better sense than just, they just happened to be there. That was a big plot contrivance. The upshot of it was that they did get to show the dichotomy between the lifestyle and also the mentality of native Britons who had grown up in that world and this, Swedish guy whose girlfriend looks like a fish because she's had so much plastic surgery, and he's kind of got, the Swedish guy kind of has what you might call TikTok brain. And I thought that I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that dichotomy. I thought it got some good laughs, but it relies on contrivance to happen, which is a problem.
One of the things I felt when I was getting to that point in the film, because I found the thing where he said, "Oh yeah, we've got someone back at our place who had a shellfish reaction, like could talk about the girlfriend he has in that photo." I thought that was kind of funny, but I was starting to wonder. It's like, man, where's the dad? I haven't seen him in ages, and I felt like first we were missing a scene where the dad acknowledges that his son and his wife have gone, and that every point would say they've left the island to go to the doctor. He's got all the information he needs to conclude that. We don't see him until like the end of the movie, where he's just been sitting at the kitchen table waiting for news, which I was like, man, I got the impression from that kind of character that he would have loaded the fuck up and been like, I will track my son and I'm going to go save him, which I was totally ready for, by the way.
I was
ready for that too, but they made a really big point of saying, if you go out there and you don't return, we don't come after you. And then they showed all the dead people. But I do think he would have gone after his son, honestly.
I thought that's why they made that point, is that they established this is the rule in order that he will go on to break that rule. And he does run out of the village at the end of the movie when he thinks that the son might have come back.
He just is that, well, he can't because of the high tide. It's like, it's going to go low again.
It is going to go low.
I mean, I guess that's going to be the next movie, isn't it?
But like, why would he have chased them earlier? It's weird that he had to wait for a note to say that they were outside of the island when he knew that already.
He probably thought his son was dead. Like, he probably wrote them off, or they wouldn't let him leave. We should know the answer to those questions. They should have included that scene in the film so that we knew why he didn't leave. But the one thing I did want to address, like the pregnant woman, pregnant zombie, there were a few weird things about that. First off, like, I didn't know zombies could feel pain, and the reason a woman screams is because it hurts. I'm assuming, I don't have kids, I'm assuming it hurts like hell to give birth to a child, and that's why you would scream. If a zombie or a rage human, whatever you want to call them now, is giving birth, the fact that it's screaming is telling me that it is experiencing pain to some degree. And that's definitely a difference in these zombies. And the fact that
the zombies do feel pain, and 28 days later they have,
I remember that being an element.
Do they?
You've got
they could be
the soldiers chained up. They do. The soldiers chained up, and you can see him in horrible pain. He's writhing. He's clearly in pain. But the rage virus is so, it takes over the mind, and it overpowers it so that they aren't able to pull back from pain. But they definitely feel pain.
I suppose there's a big difference though between what you see there, like the pain of injuries or the pain of like just being infected with this horrifying virus versus the pain of childbirth, which is then a task that you have to like actually put conscious thought into completing. Like, you know, she has to give birth, and that's something that she has to. It's almost like she has to stop being enraged in order to do it, and so the virus takes on a whole different dimension now when you see it in that context.
Well, and she knew enough to go to a secure place away from the others. Like she went into a secure place
Yeah.
to deliver that baby. And there is something to be said about, you know, maybe like this virus has mutated and this particular group of infected aren't responding in the same way as the infected we saw in 28 days or 28 weeks later. And in that moment of giving birth, perhaps there's a moment of return to like clarity in that simple moment of giving birth, and that's why she grabs the mother's hands and holds on while she pushes. I don't know if that's totally justifiable, but I do see that reasoning in how the woman zombie responds to the mother who's trying to connect with her. And it is a weird moment because then a moment later she wants to eat the baby and the other mother. But the other thing that I think is the alpha, I don't know if he's the father of that baby or if it was just an infected woman or a pregnant woman who got infected. And we don't know the answer to that question. It could be the alpha father. It could be just the infected woman had
I think she was
with the virus enough to give birth.
I think she was pregnant and then got infected. The reason I say that is because when you see them earlier in the river, she's wearing what looks like some kind of hospital gown. So she's wearing clothing of some kind. So clearly she was a normal person at some point.
Yeah.
Presumably was pregnant and then got infected. I don't know.
She can't have been gestating for 25 years.
No.
And, like, hospitals haven't existed, we assume, for a while. I thought it was the alpha zombie thing was I mean, there's always the chance it's a virgin birth, right? I wouldn't put it past him.
No,
It's
but there are
just,
other.
It was the will of the Force.
There are other living human beings that are not infected out there, and I think that's what this woman was. And I think that what they were trying to do with that baby is to show you how an alpha is created. That somehow the virus has changed, and it feels a little contrived, to be honest. The virus has changed. If it gets to an infected woman that can withstand this certain virus mutation, then they create this alpha that can, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this, you guys probably did, but the alpha can kind of control infected animals and can control the more intelligent zombies. Like, doesn't even have to say a word. He just controls them. And that's kind of weird.
It seems to be, yeah, to some degree. I don't understand what the crow thing was all about. Like,
I didn't understand that at all. I thought it was gonna eat them or something.
Yeah.
Like
he sent the
like
crows after them. Like,
it's like the minions of Saruman, clearly.
Well, yeah.
Been sent out here.
But like that is strange for an audience in a very what's considered to be a grounded zombie universe to have one of the alphas, which is already a new concept, to send crows after people. I was like, we're borderline fantasy at this point. Like you know, further fantasy.
The ending kind of bothered me as well. Like when Spike leaves the baby hanging off the gate of this settlement, because one, how the fuck did he approach that place without anyone seeing him?
It was spot him, yeah.
Two, how did you manage to leave the baby there without it making any noise whatsoever? And then three, why in the name of all that is good in this world would they take this baby in and not just immediately kill it?
Well, especially when he says it's infected.
Because he leaves it in a letter saying like, oh, so its mum was infected, but it doesn't seem to be, so you should totally take care of it. They would straight up kill it. They are super aware of how dangerous the infected are, and they take no chances.
Well, the fact is, like, even if the creature, the baby, is not like some monster, it's like, well, it could be a carrier though, and that's an extreme risk.
You guys watched 28 weeks?
Yeah.
All right, when are we going to talk about Jimmy and the, like, what I've nicknamed like the psychedelic, Jedi Knights from hell? Like, it was like the most bizarre end.
It's the Jimmy Savile gang,
but it was weird.
It's the Jimmy Savile gang, right? And like, I don't know if Americans know who he is, but He
was
was
that a
saying,
reference to Jimmy Savile? Because I was thinking,
of
he
course it
looks kind
fucking
of like
was.
Jimmy
The
Savile.
Right.
gold, yeah.
He's got the jewelry,
He's got the rings and
tracksuit.
everything.
He's got the long blonde
Yeah, he
hair.
does.
That's Jimmy fucking Savile, man.
And now you
what's-
say it, it's actually really obvious. I'm surprised I didn't spot it, but
Yeah.
But what's interesting as well, right? This, from their point of view, the world essentially ended in 2002. Now that would have been before Jimmy Savile died of natural causes and before like all the revelations about him came out. So he would have had a different perception in the eyes of Jimmy, the character, who's now taken on that persona. So I don't know. But again, it's such a weird thing to put into a movie like this because we're talking like 10, 15 years after this guy's died in the real world. And
But
Americans
were
aren't
they
going to have a
also
fucking
like
clue who he
humanized
is.
Teletubbies, like on top of it?
I think Alex Garland is going for, he's insinuating that Jimmy is a predator who is going to essentially consume the souls of everyone he comes across in the same way. Also, there's, I mean, Alex Garland.
I can't even say his name, man.
Alex Garland loves his spiritual themes. Sunshine is a good example of that. It's an allegory for science versus God, to its kind of detriment, actually.
yes.
That's an example of theme over substance. The plot is, let's not get into Sunshine. Anyway, I think what Alex Garland is doing here is he's insinuating that, first of all, he's a predator, but also there's a bizarre theory that Jimmy Savile was a witch. And I think Alex Garland would love that kind of stuff, that this idea that he can use a real life figure to insinuate that this Jimmy is a kind of witch spiritual character type thing. So I would expect to see that more in the sequel. It's an interesting end. I quite liked it because I liked how bizarre it was. This is why I liked the movie so much, because it is very unconventional. The zombie franchise died of inertia. It just became the same fucking thing every time.
Yeah.
And what 28 years later does that I love is it actually does something with the virus. Now, like, I hate to bring up this example because I hate even mentioning the fucking thing, but The Last of Us Part 2, one of the reasons it was so awful is because they didn't do anything with the virus. The virus has no end point. It has no evolution. It doesn't like build a giant fucking hive that it wants to shoot spores out of so it can infect everybody in the service. It does nothing. It's just a plot device. This actually treats the virus like a character, and the virus goes places. And there's interesting headcanon here. So, for example, did the virus evolve in 28 weeks later when it was inside that woman for 6 months before it then went out again? Or was the American military mistaken in saying that Britain was infection-free? And in fact, the virus had by that stage already created new strains, and it was, all over Britain. The Americans just weren't aware of it. It's an interesting question. I don't even know if this movie, it doesn't try to retcon 28 weeks later, because it does say, look, it reached the continent of Europe, it was pushed back, and then it was quarantined. There are ways to kind of head canon why Britain wasn't exterminated, because think about the geopolitics of it. America tries to turn Britain into a colony and fails, and it creates another infection, and then the infection reaches Europe. So after that, millions of people die. No one wants to go back to Great Britain. Okay, but this is 28 years. That's a long time. You'd think maybe they would change their mind and had another crack at it by then. But by then, they may have done enough research to figure out, no, the island is totally infested. Nobody can go there. So now their options become, okay, well, we have two options. You can't even send 100,000 soldiers there, because inevitably, given just how plagued Britain is, the infection's going to hit the soldiers. So you can go with total extermination using chemical weapons.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much your only option.
Well, I mean, or you could do exactly what the survivors did do in this and find a little island and set up a base there and start making expeditions and clearing sort of zone by zone. I mean, there are a lot of things you could do. But that's sort of what they tried to do in 28 Weeks Later. They set up the quarantine zone within London and tried to expand from that. One of the reasons I don't like the beginning of that film is that you don't try and set up a secure zone in the middle of the biggest city in the country. It's retarded. But I'm less concerned with that. Like, again, there's a degree of it happened before movie starts, so I can kind of willingly suspend my disbelief just about for all of that. But on the point of like it doing interesting things with the virus, I almost think it's a bit too soon to say for that. And my concern with the end, and actually with the beginning, because at the beginning you get the bit with the wacko priest guy who decides that all of the infected are his children, which is just, I don't need to see that kind of nonsense again. And then at the end you get another similar thing. That, to me, is exactly what I would have expected from like late season Walking Dead stuff, when it's lost interest in what the virus is and it thinks it needs to have man's inhumanity to man being the main thrust of the story again. I don't really want to see another group of psycho, savage, native humans being mean to each other in a zombie thing when you've already got a lot of fairly interesting stuff that you could be doing a lot of work with as set up in this movie. I think just introducing the alphas and what you're doing with the virus would be enough to make a story out of. Maybe they'll subvert my expectations and actually the Jimmy Savile gang will be the heroes. But given they wear upside down crosses and dress like Jimmy Savile, I don't think they're going to be.
I also think that one of the things about this film is they really did borrow from Richard Matheson's short story, and how they developed the evolution of the virus. Because at one point in that short story, the zombies were real zombies killing and eating and all that, but then they developed into these other types of zombies, and I see that parallel here in this film. And I think I see a lot of other parallels to other zombie films too. So in some ways, 28 years later is almost a pastiche or a mashup of a lot of the really great zombie films that are out there. And I'm almost now talking myself out of its cleverness and my own enjoyment of the film when I first saw it here. But I guess the way they pull those bits together into this film is done well enough that I still like it. But I'm seeing more and more of just this these borrowed tropes from greats, past greats.
On the front of the geopolitics, one aspect I think is almost ignored is how the world would view Britain as an enormous, horrifying time bomb. The infection could move through water or air or animals at any point. They can't know for sure that it's like perfectly quarantined. As much as they've got efforts to keep it there, I just think that most world powers would agree Britain needs to be solved. We need to do something.
Yeah,
you've got alpha infected that can control birds. The rest of the world's already fucked. Birds don't tend to stay in one place. They can fly.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, on top of that, personally, I'm not sure what I think about the development of the virus into, let's call them the crawlers, the alphas, and the nudists. I don't know. I'm not sure if these are those. I'm not sure what I think about all of that yet. I need to think on it a bit more because I don't know if it's an interesting idea that develops my understanding of this sort of world and how the virus is developed, or if it's kind of just a lame way to develop different circumstances because they've run out of ideas for how to make regular zombie encounters.
I do think that, like, knowing what we know about now about global pandemics and viruses and stuff, that they do mutate and you get different strains that affects people in different ways. I think it's not implausible that you get these different kinds of infected. And I don't know. I think maybe you're right that you're going to run out of scenarios where you've just got regular, super angry people who just want to tear and bite and kill everything in their path. You maybe want to do something more with it and explore where this can ultimately go. And you've now got this idea of intelligent or semi-intelligent alphas that have some kind of like human-like motivations of, eating and reproducing and, actually doing more than just like blindly smashing and destroying everything in their path. So I can get behind that, but then maybe you'll lose the unique element that made 28 Days Later so compelling. They're not just like a force of nature anymore. They're almost becoming characters unto themselves, which is not as terrifying in a lot of ways.
Well, I was mentioning the red editing or the way to present the horror that is those zombies. I was expecting a bunch of this, like new versions and new scenarios. And hey, 28 years later, we can develop all different kinds of environments and difficulties. And being in a big dilapidated house, being chased by regular zombies is still like thrilling to me to watch if you nail it right. Like I want to see how they manage to escape that, because when they're desperately trying to get into the attic, when more and more of them are coming in one by one, I was very much engrossed with it. But then doing like, oh no, Ray Fiennes and the kid have to jump into a cage before the alpha gets them. I was so confused. I was like, just shoot him with the thing. Shoot him with the little thing. Why aren't you doing that?
Well, as well, like
they always. I was just going to say before you go in there, they always back off when the plot needs them to. Like, so when you've got that whole sequence of like the mum deciding to take her own life, and then like he has to boil her down so that she's just a skull. None of them attack during that period because that would be inconvenient to the story. But there's no reason why they don't. It's just, the plot doesn't want that to happen right now. Sure, okay.
So I'm curious about the Swedish soldier. You know how he talks about they hit a rock or something, the boat went down, they had to swim to land. I mean, I'm not a soldier. I've never worn that much gear. I don't know how they would not sink and die. But that's beyond my knowledge base here. But my question for you is how implausible that sounds. I mean, they know where the rocks are. They know where the things are. Do you think there's a chance that the European government knew they couldn't get a soldier to go onto that island of their own accord, and they just chose some guys, made them wear certain things, and sent them off and made the boat go down?
That's all possible. The problem is, if you have to headcanon a plot in order for the plot to make sense, it's not a very good plot.
Right.
That's the worst aspect of the movie, because it's so obviously contrived. There are benefits to it, but it's a big contrivance.
And if what you're suggesting is true, I don't know what they would gain from that, because it's sending a bunch of untrained guys ashore with limited supplies and stuff. Of course, they're just going to die within a matter of days. What does the government gain from seeing that happen? Probably not. I think what he's describing is probably true, particularly because they're all dead now. Everyone involved in that expedition is now gone.
Yeah.
So there's no thread to pick up with that now.
I'm not a huge fan of the whole, wait and see for film 2 and 3 to see how this all turns out sort of stuff. Some of my favorite first films and trilogies are films that I think are incredible on their own and then lead into a bunch of stuff. This one, I am finding myself saying, like, I'm not sure about this yet. We'll have to wait and see, which it's just not my favorite version of the first of a 3-film saga, especially knowing what we've got coming next in terms of creatives. It's like,
MauLer, I thought there were just 2 films. Are you saying there's 3?
I thought there was a trilogy coming. Is there not?
Oh
no, there's just 2.
Are they going to pull that off?
You sure?
No, I think it's this one, and then Nia DaCosta is doing the second part of this. I think.
All this said, like, for all the I mean, you to be fair, you have raised good points and good criticisms about the movie that I hadn't considered before. I'll admit that. I'd say my opinion of it is probably lowered over the course of this debate, but I still think it's a really good movie. And the first third in particular, the first act, and this is one of the things I really loved about it. I don't think this is a Hollywood movie, is it? This is British, or is it a bunch of different production companies? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Mainstream Western movies, over the past 10 years, have been very reluctant, basically, to show positive masculinity and the theme of masculine becoming. And you get both, and like positive father figures. Like, father figures are always shown as sort of deadbeat losers, in need of a peppy young woman to come along and inject some spirit back into their life. So this is a good example of positive masculinity, mostly. I
was going to say, how do you feel about him cheating on his wife?
Yes, I did say.
And hitting his son in the face.
That's okay. Like, if you think about the world he's in and the condition of his wife and what he has to face every day, it's a very human moment.
I'm assuming the movies, like the second movies, or sorry, the sequel is going to expand on that a little bit and give more context for it.
I think he deserved as a character. We needed to see his reaction to finding out they were gone, and then we need to see the scene where he says, like, I'm going after them, and then a bunch of people stop him, or that he has a reason to think to not go. He deserved that.
That's the Alex Garland problem. So the plot demands that, but the themes, they demand Ralph Fiennes. And that's one of the reasons Civil War was so shit is that he was so fucking obsessed with his theme of war as spectacle that he just completely ignored the horrible plot contrivances and the fact that none of it really made sense when you think about it for 5 seconds. But that doesn't matter, guys, because did you see how tense the scene with the guy with the sunshades was? Oh my God, pure cinema.
Yeah, it was so good they put it in the trailer, and you only needed to see the trailer to see that movie, because it's the only good bit in it.
Wasn't it literally in the movie because Jesse Plemons happened to show up on set that day and was like,
he was able to fill a role. Yeah, I think so. And he was
like,
the best thing
I'll
in the
do
movie.
this. Yeah.
By the way, I was just having a look. It is a trilogy, Drinker.
Oh, the other thing as well, fuck that scene.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, man, but just fuck that scene. It's like, oh, look, there's a guy with a submachine gun burying bodies in a giant hole. Let's go talk to him. Like, fuck off.
Well, they
all.
Sorry,
series.
MauLer,
this
yeah.
one-
So Nia DaCosta's doing the second movie in the trilogy, and then there's going to be a third one after that, which I guess Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are coming back.
Who
for that
knows?
one.
It's just that I'm not reassured by that knowledge because
Nia DaCosta is going to fucking kill this trilogy before
But, like,
it
that's-
happens.
I don't even if it were all Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, I'd still kind of feel a little unsatisfied with the first of the three. You know what I mean?
I was going to
Yeah.
say as well, Despot, like when you're talking about liking the movie a little bit less as we're talking about it, how did you feel about Isla deciding to just kill herself?
Yeah,
because,
that one was
like-
that was almost a bit of a struggle for me. The
He-
thing
here's-
is,
It felt rushed.
Well, I was going to say,
It
like,
was very
here's where
rushed.
I would be with this one. It's like, okay, she gets diagnosed with cancer, and it's like, okay, it's terminal. I get you. It's not looking good, and you understand. Like, he's a doctor. He can give you an overdose or whatever, and end it. I think my attitude would be, yep, I get you. I'm not feeling that terrible though at the moment, and like, why don't we take this whole killing myself thing and put a pin in it, and maybe I'll come back in like a month or
Yeah,
two when it's real bad, and then I'll do it. But it's like, nah, I might as well just check out right now. Like,
Ray Fiennes
all
and her basically conclude that she's going to be killed subtextually, like they signal each other with nods that
nod.
this is going to.
Yeah.
I was baffled because I was like, okay, because I get it. Same with you, Drinker. Like I was like, I understand wanting to not have to die from cancer versus a good death, so to speak, right? But first of all, like, don't you want to spend one more night with your son? I don't know.
Or
Yeah.
how about like, yeah, several more. It's like she doesn't seem that
Well-
sick that she's like, at death's door or anything.
I think
and-
it's almost a deficiency in the problem with Spike's character. I think he's really well performed. I think the kid does an excellent job.
Yeah.
The kid does.
I think
and,
everyone
like,
in this movie
oh,
does.
yeah,
Like,
they're all really
performance-wise.
well performed. But there's a couple of issues that come about. This is probably the biggest issue where either they don't really know how to write the kid's response, or they are making a point of not writing the kid's response, maybe because they think he is a kid and like he's our POV character.
I
He
think-
doesn't have fully formed views, so we're not going to either. But that scene in particular, it should really be a story about him and his mother. He is involved in this. He's brought her all the way here. It's he who will have to live on after all of this. We cut away from that and we have this almost dreamlike sequence with the fires going around, which is beautiful to watch, but it just happens and then we move on, and the kid doesn't really get a chance either to particularly argue against what's happened or even to reflect on what's happened before we just pick up again and carry on with what we were doing before. Whether that's just like a problem with like the way they wrote that character or whether they did it deliberately, I'm not sure.
To echo
So-
Despot and some of the things he said recently, I got the strong impression in that sequence that character took a back seat for theme.
Yeah.
Like that kid, if he was me, if I just found out that my mum is going to die and then they drugged me so that I wouldn't be able to react or stop them from killing her, I'd be fucking furious.
Yeah, I do think that they needed to handle the Spike's reaction a little differently, but I guess I think I have a different perspective than you guys on the mother's death and her cancer. I mean, having had a mother who died of cancer and the cancer went into her brain, the incredible amount of pain you're in, even before your body becomes as riddled with cancer as Isla's body apparently was, and how your mind detaches and once it goes in your head, there's so much that happens that you just lose track of, and the pain you're under. They could have done more to express the level of pain she was
Yes.
experiencing, and I
Yeah.
think that's where they really went wrong, because death in that circumstance should have been a relief for her and her son, and I didn't get that sense of relief in the choice that she made. But I understood the choice that she made, having gone through my own experiences with my mom. So it could have been handled differently, but I get the choice.
Yeah, it's because they focus a lot on the delusional aspects of the thing, right? They focus a lot on her mental state. Obviously, she drops memories, she sees things, she loses track of time, which is all really powerful stuff when it happens. But the problem is that when you sort of write your character to be surreal in that way, as
Right.
opposed to focusing, as you say, on the thing that would make her want to make this decision, the thing that's universally understandable, the very real pain issue that comes up, she's almost harder to understand for that reason. Again, something they could have, maybe they did think they were making a point with that. I think that they could have expressed that point much more clearly.
Yes.
When on the note of, because I it's one of the things I was sort of bought into somewhat, is that maybe she decided we should get this done fast because my son will never go along with this. But then I think if we're going that direction, we need the son to have a very strong reaction to Ray Fiennes, to be like, you took my mum from me, sort of thing.
There's a very good reason she makes that decision. Basically, and it's even set up. Ralph Fiennes asks her, look, I asked you to remember a word. Can you remember the word? And she can't. So the implication is that she might not even remember that she has cancer. And she's reasonably lucid now, but the cancer is getting worse. It has spread to her brain. And look, this is, may as well be the medieval times. There is no medicine. There are no painkillers. So this will be hell. And she decides to end it. And incidentally, look, as not to go into politics too much, but as far as euthanasia goes, I'm obviously opposed to any government involvement in it because that's a slippery slope and we all know where that leads. Just look at Canada. But if an individual wants to make their own decision free of any involvement from the government or anything like that, that's their decision, basically. But I just wouldn't want the government to have anything to do with it or for it to ever enter any form of legislation. So I don't think that there's a political problem or an agenda here, to be clear.
It's just that, the rule of the universe, all slippery slopes end in Canada, and nobody wants to go there.
Nobody wants to be in Canada now. Like I said, it was for me. It was more the weight was then put onto the Spike. I wanted to see the results of that decision there, but the film was wrapping up, and I was oh shit.
I mean, is it worth even just talking about the scene we do get for him? Because so the Dr. Ralph Fiennes character, he has been sort of boiling these bodies and building this kind of, well, the next film's going to be called Bone Temple, isn't it? I don't know if this one is the Bone Temple, but he has been building a kind of temple made of bones and skulls and things like that. For spiritual, religious reasons, he's not like an evil guy yet. He's portrayed as being really nice and quite lovely and helpful. So he's been doing all this. He boils the bodies. So he goes away, and obviously the mother takes her own life, or he helps her take her own life, and she is boiled. And basically, the response you get from Spike's character is he's just given her freshly boiled skull, and told to put it in the nicest spot in the Bone Temple, which he does. It looks beautiful. Again, like all of this film looks beautiful, but it's like I'm trying to put myself in the mind of that kid, having sort of gone to bed one night and woken up and they say, "Oh, you had a mother. Now here's a skull."
To be fair, he does live in that kind of world. They show a scene earlier where the woman, one of the counselors on the island, turns to Spike and says, if you go over there, you're on your own. She points to the graveyard and she says, we've lost a lot of people. And he has lived in the kind of world where you wake up one day and, Dan from down the road is just dead. He went to the mainland with his 17-year-old son.
There's a reason he's come all the way across the mainland with his mother, and it's not because he's casual about his attitude to her death.
Think about the way he perceives doctors as well. So he's never met a doctor, and he only knows doctors from secondhand information. So in his childish mind, he might think of a doctor as some sort of magic healer. Yeah. So when he goes to Ralph Fiennes and Ralph Fiennes tells him, your mother cannot be cured and there's no medicine for her, he'll probably just take Ralph Fiennes at his word and think, okay, well, he probably knows a lot better than I do. That's I don't think it's too bad. I think the kid's reaction is understandable.
I think he fully believes him when he's telling him that like there's no hope and there's nothing I can do. That's just the way it is. But to pick up on the point that Platoon made, it's a nice visual sequence of him climbing the bone mountain to put her skull at the top. But like it's at the same time, like if I was to imagine myself as a kid, or even me as an adult now, and like my mom died and someone just presented me with a skull and said like put it in a nice decorative spot, I'd be like, this is arguably horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, this is in
I don't want to touch my mom's skull.
They drugged him because they knew he'd have obviously a controversial reaction, but then he sort of doesn't.
Yeah, like he should have been, even though he's drugged, crying, screaming when he holds his mother's skull, like falling to his knees and vomiting, or something. even though he knows that this is the best thing for her. I'm just like making that part up.
Yeah.
Like, but there should have been a visceral reaction to the loss of the woman he just went across country basically to save.
I'm more than happy with him coming to understand the situation. I just would have thought, could we at least get even a scene of him raging against the doctor, being like, "You killed her," and then Ray Fiennes can explain the situation better when his drugs are wearing off, so to speak. Because like I said, I got the impression when they drugged him, I was like, "Oh shit, they're gonna kill her. This is gonna cause like a huge thing." And then I was like, "Oh, it didn't. Okay."
You know as well. Like I kind of feel like that should almost have been the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
That felt dramatically, that's probably where it should have ended, or roughly around there. Because then you immediately get this like chase sequence with like the Alpha, like chases them into the hole, and then he almost kills Ray Fiennes. And then it's like, oh, you better leave now and go back to the, the settlement. And then he does that and drops off the baby. And it's like, okay, well, that works as an ending as well. Then you get this other sequence as well now where he's on the run and he's left, he's gone back to the mainland by himself. And then he runs into the Jimmy Savile gang. And it's like,
we didn't need that.
Well, the problem is though, like a big poignant moment, like his mother, like giving up her life and, checking out essentially, it's robbed of its dramatic impact and its weight because it then gets swallowed up and overshadowed by all this other stuff that then gets like crammed in right at the end of the movie on top of it. And it's just really unfortunate because it's a very beautiful sequence, and I think the performances and everything are top notch.
So
Can't fault it for that. It's just, it feels then like it just gets lost in the mix, this confused mix that's at the end of the movie, because it goes back to what I said at the beginning. The first act of this film, absolutely brilliant. Second act, I really like it, but it's getting a bit shaky. The third act, it's all a bit of a mess. So, I mean, I don't know.
Hey, I have one more question for you guys. So one of the things when I was watching it that I kept waiting for, because we kept seeing these little montages of medieval Scotland, bows and arrows, guys on ramparts, all of that. I kept wondering, like, where are the swords? Like, the only blades that people have are these really short little pocket knife things. Like, where are the Bowie knives? Where are the swords to, like, lop people's heads off? Like, what?
You probably you don't want to get in close with the infected, because a single drop of their blood into your eye or an open wound or something, you're infected.
And that was remembered, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I did like it. It kind of gets overlooked again, like in the train carriage sequence where the Swedish guy guns down the pregnant lady, and it's like right fucking next to her, and she doesn't get a drop of blood.
Well,
But the principle's there. So yeah, I can totally understand why they would rather engage them at a distance and take them down before they get anywhere near them, because those things they are blood fountains when they get going. So yeah, I can understand.
All right.
Allow me to just read out a couple of super chats while I'm here. There's one here from there's a big 50 that came in actually just there. Cajun Texan says, first super chat, love all the content over the years. I really wanted to like Ballerina, but I couldn't take it seriously once they turned her into Bullseye from Daredevil, throwing things like ice skates with the speed and accuracy of a pro skater. A pro pitcher. Yeah, Ballerina had some problems, I think. I don't know how many of you guys have seen it.
I feel like that's a movie that I'll be questioning ever existed after a year has passed, because it seems to have come and gone so quickly.
It was an odd one, yeah. I think people have kind of forgotten about it already. The idea was there, and like the movie pays lip service to this concept of, hey, she's smaller, weaker than the people that she's going to be going up against, and so she has to fight dirty. She has to be more intelligent. She has to take a different approach. Okay, but then she doesn't. She just fights exactly like John Wick in all the action sequences. And I just thought, what was the point in that? Are you just lampshading this whole issue? That's all we get from it. So yeah, it's just like John Wick, but not as good. Jesus de Villa, would you recommend someone 28 years later to someone who's only seen the first one, or would you advise still seeing the second and this one, or just watch the original and not watch the sequels at all? You don't need to. Sorry,
28 Days is still the king out of the three, as far as I'm concerned. I have a lot that I appreciate about that film, especially its legacy. But
Weeks is a bad movie. Its setup is a mess. It relies on the Americans to just be completely retarded in how they approach the eradication of the virus, and it's so much contrivance. And once the zombie virus does break out again, it's just a bunch of really kind of cheesy zombie era action scenes.
Yeah,
and then Hawkeye is there. It's not a good movie. It's
a movie about bad decisions and poorly strategized choices. Like,
as much as 28 Days Later was like quite a revolutionary zombie movie for its time, like 28 Weeks Later is just a very conventional action horror. That's all it is. So
an ironic fucking sequel for the film that inspired a whole era to end up with one of the sloppiest ones.
28 Years Later is much better than 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
Like, far better.
Yeah. Definitely. Way more heart behind that. Work Mode Activated says, first time I catch an open bar live. With the old guard of Hollywood passing on and retiring, do any of you have faith in the up-and-coming generation of actors, directors, and writers, etc.? Ignore the politics in movies, of course. Do I have faith in them? Nope. Not when Pedro Pascal's leading the charge.
There's just highlights. There's some directors, writers, producers, whatever. We just like, oh, they usually like. I saw an ad for Mike Flanagan's new film, and I was like, that'll be something I'll probably check out just because he seems more reliable than the average. Anyway, any of you guys get a whole bunch of R-rated trailers that I'd never seen before? Like,
there was a lot of horror stuff at the cinema today for me.
That movie with Dave Franco and Alison Brie, where they're merging into each other or something. I was like, what the hell movie is this?
Is that the one where she's like, drilling his arm off or something? Or like
sawing the arms apart, I think, which the person I was watching this with was like, do you want to see that? I was like, I don't know.
Well, I actually think that there is a wonderful generation of writers out there writing films, writing scripts, sending them into deep, dark holes that never get read because they don't have the right contacts. And that's what I don't have faith in, is there are some wonderful creatives out there that aren't getting the light of day. And that's because they don't know the right people. They don't have the right contacts. And, they're not in the who's who.
I think that this year is already much better than last year in terms of the good movies I have seen, like
Warfare.
Obviously, 28 Years Later, great. And then what was the name of that horror movie they brought back? Bloodlines? Final Destination Bloodlines. That's good fun.
I wouldn't describe it as great, but it was fun.
No. But it's a fun movie and it's politics free and it just wants to have a good time and be sort of horror slap. That was good crack. And I also liked Sinners. It's a good movie.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I desperately they're doing much better than 2024. 2024 for me is probably the worst year in cinema history, at least as far back as I can, my knowledge goes, which admittedly is not very far.
2024, I guess, was coming off the back of the strikes as well, so there was a lot of problems going on there. But yeah, it was some garbage stuff. I desperately wanted Final Reckoning to be good. I wish it had been, but god damn it,
that movie sucks.
Yeah, no hiding it.
It was so disappointing, but.
There's a point here from Disregard says 28 years later, you don't even need armed soldiers on the ground anymore to combat it. Drone warfare pretty much nullifies the entire threat. No excuse for leaving the island.
No, you have to think about the landscape of Britain now. It's 28 years of unchecked growth, so it's just a giant forest now. It's all overgrown. The drones won't be able to see anything.
Plus, that's when you send in the robots.
Even a group of soldiers like trained in modern warfare, they would immediately get lost. It even happens in the movie. They end up in this kind of aqueduct or this something like that, and the reason is because I think they couldn't do anything in the brush. It was so overgrown because it's wild Britain, and they show you this. They show you how wild it has become, and these soldiers aren't used to that. And they try to find an open clearing, and it's an aqueduct, and then the infected start jumping on top of them. I find it very believable that they were defeated by the zombies because they couldn't deal with that environment. It was too alien to them.
The problem for me is the editing always shows, say, for example, 4 zombies going blah, blah, and heading toward them with a 10-meter distance. Guy with rifle holds it up, goes, shows one go down. Another one goes down. Then ninja zombie from behind gets him. And I was just like, bro, you would have taken out all 4 of them.
Well, they're not very well trained, obviously.
Yeah, I guess
I
so.
know. I love the idea of ninja zombie, but whatever.
Well, so
Yeah.
funnily enough, I
He
was
just
going to
jumps
say,
on him.
I will say
holy
as well,
shit,
like,
the alpha had some plot armor in this movie. Like,
oh yeah, because
Yes.
like
it was
one shot to the
insane.
head would presumably
Yeah.
take him down, but it's like no, just keep aiming for that torso, huh?
Well, he had ninja abilities too, because they had the full torches in that tunnel, and yet he just suddenly appears in front of one of them and kills them. I was like, how the fuck did he do that? And it's like, well, he's
Like, does he see in the
Ninja.
dark? Like, what?
probably he's probably got super speed as well, super
He's like a
agility.
super soldier. Maybe he could be
Mhm.
Captain America.
I will say as well, like drone warfare obviously is in the headlines because of like stuff in Ukraine and stuff, but it's usually to take out tanks and armored vehicles. Like that's what a drone is particularly useful, or fly into an enemy plane while it's parked on the ground, and you've just used like a $100 drone to take out a $20 million aircraft. Good going, but yeah, using it against individual infected, not so much.
I think
But you could
part
use
of it-
drones with cameras in swarms to map out the land, to figure out where the
could.
infected are, where the uninfected are. Where I mean, there's no
The problem
reason
is
they
there's
don't
no
know exactly
distinction.
what's on that island.
Because in 28 weeks later, they found that there was a human who was carrying the virus. So if you want to clear Britain, it's just two choices. You either go total extermination or you leave them alone. And it's really that simple. There's no other way to do it because you can't let the humans live.
There would be world powers, and a nondescript potential president might be like, the wonderful Britain has been ravaged by a virus, and we're going to get him back. We're going to bring Britain back.
Are you saying you're gonna make?
We're gonna
Britain
build a
great
great,
again?
big, beautiful island.
Zombie wall.
Britain is going to be great again. It's going to be great. It's going to be the best Britain ever, better than any time in the past, the past 500 years.
Admittedly, it's a zombie movie, but imagine that idea that like several world forces come at Britain they want to be the first to clear it, to take it. Like,
I want the
important, but
super
it'd be funny.
I want the super liberal world government that wants to take in zombie refugees.
That was what was entering my mind.
They're going to enrich
like,
our culture, guys. Don't worry.
If we can take in like Somalians and just any old bum who can show up on the coast with his hand out, why not bring in rage monsters? Like, what? It's not that different. Just bring them in. Why not? All comers.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Peter Miros. It says, for many years, I wanted to ask the Despot of Antrim. Okay, sure. Is the mascot of the channel the Karen iPhone? What is the genesis of this? I understand all the members of the channel, but this one is puzzling me. Please explain.
Karen iPhone is the handler from Cruelty Squad, and she just looks really hideous, but at the same time cool. So I thought it would be funny to have her reading quotes. And I originally named her Karen Iathon, but everyone just couldn't understand what I was saying. And they were writing in the comments in the chat like, oh man, I love Karen iPhone. And I thought that's so much better. That's such a better name. So I changed it to Karen iPhone.
Fair dues.
That's fantastic.
Ryan Horwath says, has anyone watched and reviewed Department Q on Netflix? A British crime thriller with Matthew Good as the lead. Really worth a watch, and I hope it gets a second season. So I'm like 3 episodes into it at the moment. I like it so far. The writing is sharp as a tack. Really good stuff.
I'm 1 episode in on that one.
It's a good premise. I like it. So yeah, hopefully it continues to be good. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do one more, and then I'll bring on the next subject. Cap J says, is it widely considered that 28 days later is much superior than 28 weeks later? Yes. Yes, it is.
It's not even close. It's a masterpiece versus a very generic movie from the zombie era.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's artistically a masterpiece. Like the visuals that you get are stunning, stunning.
Yeah. It strikes that perfect balance between like the visceral horror of the outbreak and the survival aspect of it, and also the kind of existentialist questions of like, well, what the hell happens now that society is ended? Like, what is even the point of our lives? Like, how do we go on? Where's it all heading? It's great stuff, and it has this like weird dreamlike quality to it at times, like the bit where they're looking at the horses in a meadow, like running free and stuff. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feat of filmmaking as well, when you consider the budget and the fact that they filmed much of it on a digital video recorder, camcorder.
Yeah. Well, they emptied central London so they could film the post-apocalyptic scenes there. I mean, God, for a tiny budget movie, that is impressive.
I know they this. I'm actually I'm doing a big Danny Boyle video at the minute, so I was researching it, and I heard this really. You wouldn't think about it, but it's just a fun little filmmaking factoid. When they were doing the running zombies, one of the problems they encountered is that your average actor can't run. Right, they can't run the length of themselves without collapsing in a heap and panting. So what Danny Boyle did is he went to an agency that works with ex-athletes. You know, like once athletes retire when they're like in their late 20s or early 30s, they will go to open up supermarkets or things like that. You know, they've got this agency which gets them all sorts of work. So he just hired athletes to be the running zombies because there were no actors able to do that. And it really works because the average person cannot inspire terror when they run. They can only really inspire laughter. But if it's an athlete, like a fucking trained athlete, that's why they look so terrifying, because these are athletes running at gym trying to kill them.
That is pretty good, actually.
That is great.
I had to do this one as well. Help drinker. I showed my son Commando, and now whenever I ask him to do things, he just responds with wrong. Hopefully, he doesn't like go full Arnie and shoot you at the same time. But yeah,
that's funny.
I mean, what can I say? Commando will turn boys into men and women into men as well, potentially. It's got that much testosterone in it. Yeah, the only other thing that was in the news this week was James Gunn absolutely shredding the MCU, talking about how they
loved it.
Yeah, I mean, he was brutally honest when he gave this interview with Variety. Yeah, it's just talking about how they were essentially killed with too much content. What does he say here? Yeah, it wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and it killed them, Gunn said of Marvel. We don't have the mandate at DC to have a certain amount of movies and TV shows every year, so we're going to put everything that we think is of the highest quality. Yeah, sure. We're obviously going to do some good things and not so good things, but hopefully on average, everything will be as high quality as possible. Nothing goes before there's a screenplay that I personally am happy with. And he ties it into a larger point here, saying that a lot of movies now are commissioned and basically go all the way into production without having finished scripts. He says, I do believe that the reason why the movie industry is dying is not because of people not wanting to see movies. It's not because of home screens getting so good. Yes, it fucking is, because nobody wants to sit in a crowded cinema with a bunch of sweaty assholes. And the number one reason is because people are making movies without a finished screenplay.
I mean, that's dead on. Like, I've been complaining about spectacle over story for years. And I finally feel like at least James Gunn is getting it. Maybe some other people are. Spectacle is great and it has its place. But if you don't have story, it doesn't matter. And they're just like soaking up the money from us to give us spectacle, thinking that that's all we want.
Well, I mean, like, money is the operative word here, because like I was booking tickets to go see F1, right? I wanted to see it in IMAX, and I picked a recliner seat because they're really comfortable. That's £22 for one ticket, right? So imagine you want, and like that's going to be what, like $27, $28 easily, right? So imagine you want to take like a family of four to go see that. That's going to be well north of £100 once you factor in food and snacks and all that stuff.
Right.
Just to see one fucking movie at the cinema. Like, that's unsustainable.
Yeah, so, and honestly, a movie like F1, you do want to see it on IMAX or in a Dolby Digital cinema to feel the film.
Yeah. It's going to be that kind of movie. It's obviously, you're going to get a lot of rumbling engines and stuff, which is all great, but like, you have to pay a premium for it. And so you get in this position where you think, God damn, like I could sail the high seas and watch this on like a pretty big TV at home. And most people nowadays have a decent sized TV and a decent sized sound setup in their living room. It's not like the 90s anymore where we're all got like 20-inch little portable TVs. It's different now. And so that factors into it as well. But yeah, I mean, I take his point about movies now just getting rushed into production with hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, and they don't even have a finished script.
Is that a particularly Disney problem, though? Because just from my own research over the past couple of years and making videos and everything, it always seems to be Disney that are doing this. Disney are the ones doing the reshoots. Disney are the ones releasing movies that feel like 3 or 4 scripts just smashed together. Captain America, Brave New World was a perfect example. That feels like about 3 or 4 different movies all just smashed together. They're particularly bad for it.
I think he's making two separate points here, but they kind of tie into like a wider problem in that, yeah, one, a lot of studios are just like working with unfinished scripts because there's just this mad rush to get like the next thing into production and just get it done, and like we can do focus groups, we can test it, and then we can tweak it later based on the feedback. So it's like a movie designed by committee. And the second point being, particularly companies like Marvel, where there's a constant push to produce more content, it's just oversaturation of the market. And we've absolutely seen that with Marvel, where there's like, half a dozen different TV shows and movies per year, and it's more than like normal people can even keep up with. It's more content than they would ever want out of Marvel or any property, really. And if you're never gone, then how can we miss you? That's the problem, like the problem of abundance.
Right.
It's the problems of the abundance of shit as well. Like, I think people's tolerance for abundance would be higher if the things that they were putting out were consistently very good. Didn't Kevin Feige come out quite recently and say, like, obviously it's now feeling way too much like homework, so we're going to go back to only putting out basically the equivalent of an entire phase of Marvel content every year, which is not much of an improvement. At least we've got a way to test this coming up, though, right? Because, Fantastic Four is running against James Gunn's Superman in the next couple of months. So we'll be able to see if he's correct. Is it that the declining quality of superhero media is entirely because Marvel overproduces, or is it something else? And if Superman turns out to be no better or not substantially better than any other film we're used to seeing, kind of suggests there might be something else going on that he's not factoring into his analysis.
It's hard to keep track of every statement James Gunn makes related to Superman. So I was going to say, I don't know if you guys saw, but he said that one shot that came out earlier-ish where Superman's like flying, he said, "Oh yeah, that one got by me. That's not going to be in the movie because that was one that needs work." It was just like, oh, okay. He makes some really strange choices with what he'll admit. Like, was it him or someone else that had recently said like they can't get Batman to work yet? Like they're struggling to make him work. It's just like, why would you announce that? First of all, we knew, but secondly, it's just like it just doesn't seem like a wise thing to assure your customers, right? Like, the one of the three most iconic characters of this whole franchise ain't got him working yet, and most likely.
How can you not make Batman work? Like, it's not fucking rocket science.
Well,
like,
you've got series, just the combat between him and Matt Reeves for control over a particular storyline, a continuity, right? Because Brave and the Bold is looking like it's getting scuttled away, just possibly permanently, which is never a good idea in the first place, right? Starting with Damian Wayne and all that, but we'll see how it goes.
I'm baffled to hear, though, that an entire shot in a major trailer announcing your biggest film that's coming up got by him.
Yeah,
how does that even happen?
So the key, I would say, and I felt this has been pretty reliable at this point, James Gunn lies a lot.
Oh yeah.
You gotta keep that in mind whenever you hear a statement from him. Just imagine the opposite and then see if that fits better with reality. You'd be like, oh yeah, he probably approved that shot, and then saw everyone's reaction was like, oh no, I didn't approve that.
It doesn't. Like, I've been involved in the production of a couple of trailers. It is impossible for a shot in a trailer to get by you if you're creating the trailer. It just doesn't happen.
Tell you what, mate,
someone has to make it. You have to.
If it were my Superman movie, I'd be fucking staring at every frame of the trailer going out. The marketing is so important. But
it's
I mean, like, July is going to be this weird month
wacky
where
time.
I honestly don't know if people are rooting for these movies to fail or if they desperately want them to succeed. But
what are you talking about, Drinker? Everybody wants the new Jurassic World movie to succeed. Everybody.
That is true. That's almost like
I think everyone wants every movie to succeed. I think we love movies. That's why we're here. We want these movies to work.
But holy fuck, movies today make it really difficult to love them. It's like an abusive spouse that just keeps getting drunk and beating the shit out of you, and then afterwards they're like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm going to change my ways," and they never do. But we keep taking them back anyway. Like, this is the thing with Jurassic World as well. I fully believe that is going to come out on top and kick the ass out of the other two. But it's like Alien versus Predator, like whoever wins, we kind of lose ultimately, because what are you going to get? You're going to get another two movies of Jurassic World slop if
Well,
this
and
one is a massive success? So, like, are we really winning out of any of that?
I think that what you're saying is striking a chord with me in that all the movies we're talking about are franchises, sequels, prequels, add-ons, spin-offs,
Yeah.
world stories that already exist. Where's all the new original content? That's what people will go to the theaters to see. And whenever we see people talking about great new films, they're always, well, not always, but largely these new films that are taking a chance and doing something new. We are so tired of the remakes. We're so tired of the live action reboots. We're so tired of reimagining superheroes one more time in an all new way, in an all new space with the same old story. They've got to do something different if they want to save their industry.
I'll at least give guys like Ryan Coogler credit for Sinners. Like, that was an original story. Okay, it was a little bit similar to Dusk Till Dawn, but we'll overlook that. But it's like an original property, and that was successful. So great. Okay, give us more films like that. And I get the impression it wasn't done on a massive budget either, so it can be done economically.
Right.
Take more risks on things like that, and that could be your path to success. But these bloated superhero films, like, fuck, man. Probably Superman and Fantastic Four easily cost 250, 300 million each. They're not going to make that back. Superman might, but like Fantastic Four isn't gonna.
Fantastic Four is pretty much a guaranteed bomb at this stage. I think it has nothing going for it. I was thinking about this because it's going up against Superman and Jurassic. Is it going up against Jurassic World? But it's got some big competition. The trailers look shit. Everyone thinks that everybody's been miscast. The Silver Surfer's become a meme. There's no buzz for it. Marvel has massive brand damage, and the two movies they released this year so far are both shite. So it has absolutely nothing going for it. I can't think of a single reason why it would succeed.
Yeah. Well, July is going to be interesting. Yeah. Let me just read a couple of super chats here. Kieran says Dark Harvest would make a better movie than with far more interesting zombies and high stakes. Oh, thank you. You're flattering me. But yeah, that was my own little take on the zombie movie. And I had a lot of fun with Dark Harvest, actually. I like that one. But yeah, glad you enjoyed it. And Jaden Guthrie says, "Good day, everyone. Caught this live just in time. Speaking of zombies, has anyone seen Overlord, a World War II zombie movie by JJ before he was in director jail? It also had Kurt Russell's son starring. Anyone have thoughts on it? By the way, Drinker, quality shirt." Thank you. It's we're going through a heat wave at the moment, so a Hawaiian shirt seemed like right the thing. Yeah, I've seen Overlord. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good fun. Yeah, not a huge amount I can say on it, really. It plays around with the mashing together zombies and World War II action. I think it does a decent enough job with it. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
No.
I haven't.
Yeah. Nope. That's okay. I think JJ is still in director's jail, though. Will he ever get out? I don't know. Give me 1 second. Yeah, Second Legend. Some news from the anime sphere. The potential anime of the decade is releasing on the 28th. It's a Chinese donghua called Lord of the Mysteries. It's a very popular novel series in China, but has zero footprint in the West. Okay. I mean, awesome stuff. I have not heard of it in the slightest, so I know nothing about it, I'm afraid, but apparently that's releasing soon. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Let me jump back to the beginning of the super chats here so I can answer them. Just give me 1 second while I bring them up. Yeah. All right. Supers and there. Yeah, I jump back to the beginning. Okay. So the first one that came in tonight was Matthew Ledbetter, who says, "Hail to the panel. Thoughts on Batman the Animated Series?" Are we talking about the old one from like the 90s?
I would guess so. Have there been any others? Sadly, I've never seen the 90s one. I know I should have done. It's on my list, but my list is long.
I liked it. I was like an actual kid when I watched it. And yeah, I remember the portrayal of Two-Face was really good in that. I liked what they did with him there. Yeah, the art style and everything was all pretty decent. As far as I remember, it was good. And we're talking like 30 years ago now, so yeah, I'm a little hazy. Pac-Man says, between all the post-Phase 3 movies and Disney Plus shows, someone could make a movie about the zombie MCU called 28 Flops Later. That would be a pretty good one, actually. I like that. Marksman says there are underground star destroyers in Israel. 10,000 of them, I've been told, just waiting to burst through the ice of Israel, apparently.
The Israel ice.
Yeah. Blue Collar Loser saw Life of Chuck, best film I've seen this year.
That's the Mike Flanagan one. I'm going to want to try and check that out.
Life of Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Dragon Ball Z. I need the panel to fight with each other. Take the top 5 Disney movies versus the top 5 Pixar movies versus the top 5 DreamWorks movies. Which studio wins?
Probably Pixar.
Probably Pixar.
I'd say Pixar. I mean, Disney, going back a long way, Disney comes fairly close, but
Yeah.
Well, that was a good fight.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Look, the critical doggo's gotten involved as well. He's like watching, just ready for one of us to say the wrong thing.
He was like, you better say Pixar or I'll fuck you up.
He's a much better like companion on these than Lara is. Like she just like would not move even when I shouted her name. But if I do it with him, he'll move. Watch this. Smokey, you coming over here? No.
Wow, he just proved you wrong.
I made his ears moved a little bit. I don't know.
He's like, no way, Dad.
I'm not your dancing monkey.
Yeah.
Man,
Fine.
Pixar's got to be the biggest studio fall off. I can't think of a studio that has such a massive gap in the declining quality than Pixar.
It's a good choice because they once upon a time were the absolute golden seal of approval that the film was going to be good.
Not just good, but excellent. Like if you saw Pixar, you'd think, okay, that's going to be fucking great. But now it's pretty much
golden era
guaranteed.
is so good. Like the movies all in a row, it's insane.
It's amazing. And now, Christ, Elio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that movie without seeing it from the trailers. It's so generic.
It looks a lot like Strange World, which is one of the worst animated movies I've ever saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got roasted. David Marshall says, still no rags on open bar. Shame on you, drinker. Well, I'll have you know, I wanted MauLer to invite him for this one, but he's like, no, he's not seen 28 years later.
No, nobody in the EFAB land had except me and Platoon because we're good at our jobs compared to everyone else.
Exactly. The rest of them are slackers.
Mm-hmm.
But he says he brings good media analysis, humor, banter, and some anti-woke views. He'd be great, so bring him on soon. Yeah, I agree 100%. And yeah, let's find some stuff that Rags has actually seen, shall we? And then bring him on. Yeah, we'll take that as a personal challenge. Zeddy Boy says, for someone who has not seen the previous 2 movies, do you recommend seeing days and weeks before years? Would I be fine not having watched them? You should probably watch at least 28 days later.
You would be fine. There's nothing that you won't understand or anything. But yeah, I'd recommend watching Days first.
Yeah, just because it's actually a good movie as well. Never mind filling in the lore. John Evans says, hi, MauLer. EFAP is covering Squid Game Season 3, right?
That's the plan as it stands, though, you know, things can change if we see it and it just doesn't evoke any passion. Obviously, Season 2 is a bit of a letdown. So, but this is the end, so we might just see it through anyway, just to sort of, you know, have the complete coverage. But,
I think that makes sense.
I feel like we're the only people who'll be watching it. Nobody talks about Squid Game anymore.
It did just sink without a trace.
Yeah.
You'll watch it.
I would watch Season 3.
Did you see Season 2?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to you about it. We did an open bar about it.
We did?
Yes.
That's crazy. You're going to have to make sure you mention that in the summary of the year when it comes up.
Sure. Okay.
The year we discussed. But I forget. Are you particularly invested in Squid Game anymore? I can't remember what your conclusion was.
I'm considerably less invested than I was after Season 1, but I do kind of want to see where it ends. Like, I didn't hate Season 2. It just was nowhere near as good as the first one.
Yeah.
What was the next one? Jeremy Soden says, hi, Mubes. Just watched the interview with Tonald in EFAP 100. What an absolute gent.
Yeah, it was good times. EFAP 100.
What is Tonald? I don't know my EFAP lore on
just
this.
Just a fella we covered a couple
what?
times who eventually came on, and he's a wacky guy, unconventional. I think it's Tone Loke. He ran a channel that I would argue is a quintessential personification of everything wrong with YouTube review, but the guy himself is pretty chill. So it worked out pretty well. It was fun to talk to him.
Andrew Valdez says, I wonder if the first comment on this video will be some bot lady that I've been seeing in almost every video lately. Yeah, probably. With a generic, like, you bring so much inspiration with your commentary on things. Yeah. Thank you,
Those
random
bot
lady.
ladies, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand what the point of it is. Like, what are thousands of people going to suddenly flock to her channel and be like, oh man, what this insightful comment, I need to learn more about this lady and buy the products that she's shilling, I guess.
It's all about adjusting the algorithm. It's all about
it's probably just spillover from OnlyFans. OnlyFans now, I think I heard some horrifying statistic, like 2.5 million American women are now on OnlyFans, and the vast majority of them are.
That cannot be true. That's like a significant percentage of the population.
It is. Hold on, let me ask Google. Right, how many?
But how many of them are making money on it? Like, some of them are making a lot of money.
All right. I've got the number. So it was stated that 1.4 million American women use OnlyFans. 10% of young females are on OnlyFans. 1.4 million is the number I keep seeing. Okay, I was wrong. It's not 2.5. It's 1.4. Don't know where I got 2.5 from.
But
still a lot of people, man.
Yeah, when you say like 10% of young women are on it.
But it's I think that's where those bot comments are coming from, because the average monthly income for an OnlyFans is $150, I think. And I think that has led to real just desperation. Just try anything to attract attention to the OnlyFans. That's my guess.
Jesus.
Maybe they should just get a job.
Yeah, man, go get them crazy. McDonald's.
Just saying.
Seriously.
It's like, really crazy, but maybe it would work. Yeah.
Yep.
Fucking that. Look,
nothing,
we're screwed
nothing
as
wrong
a
with
society,
working in
man.
a fast food restaurant. Jesus Christ, go flip some fucking burgers. Do something useful with your life.
Yeah. Reno the Turk says, I recently saw a conversation with MauLer in theory. He said he wished Andor would have had Jedi and lightsabers. Young me might have agreed. Now imagine a Jedi in Andor and how it would ruin the show. I'm starting to hate the Jedi.
I mean, handle it well, any content from Star Wars, and you'll be much better off. But the point was more so it's just there's no need for a lightsaber in Andor's story.
Right.
We'll be fine,
And the more of them you have, the more damage it'll do. When, in the New Hope, Tarkin says the Jedi are extinct, the fire has gone out of the universe. You can't have Jedi running around for that believed to be, held seriously by an intelligent character. The more Jedi you add in that time period, the more damage you potentially do to the OT. So that is the time period where there are no Jedi, and it makes for way more interesting stories if you don't have to rely on them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, okay, fine, if they're an essential component of your story, you can find a way to work them in. But if they're just a crutch to generate a bit of interest because, hey, everyone loves a big shiny lightsaber because they look cool, that's where you run into like massive problems. And unfortunately, that's what you get with Disney Plus Star Wars shows. They just keep using all of these things as crutches because they don't have any actual good writing to back any of it up.
Right.
Excuse me. Mr. Case says, Stephen King sucks now. I've been reading his books and short stories for decades, but I couldn't get halfway through Holly. Written during COVID, it's basically a 400-page Pfizer ad. Kind of getting, oh, hell no. Yeah, Stephen King has just fucking gone off the deep end, I guess.
I don't know how good he ever was. I tried to read The Running Man recently because I wanted to read it as preparation for... Is it Edgar Wright is making the new one?
Yeah.
So I wanted to read it as preparation for that. But honestly, man, I got really fucking bored. It's not a good novel.
A lot of his aren't. Like, his best ones, the ones that are so well known, like It and stuff, like, okay, we get it. And like, those ones absolutely work. But he has written so much shite. And I think the prevalence of shite has increased considerably in recent years. I don't know. He's not showing any signs of slowing down. It's just maybe he's lost that knack. I'm not sure.
There's definitely been some up and down. Like, I did enjoy Fairy Tale when it came out. But, I think my favorite's still Pet Sematary. I have a first edition of Pet Sematary. So
I read that last year. And it's pretty affecting. The father-son stuff particularly is pretty damn well done. So, yeah, give him that. But that was, 40 years ago he wrote that? Easily.
Well, I was going to say The Shining, right, would be one of his famous ones as well.
Yeah, but then it's famous because of the movie, and the movie's nothing like the book. And then
there was
they
actually
did like
oh, you're about to say it, Trinker, I think.
yeah, they did a TV adaptation of the book, and it was fucking horrendous. But Stephen King thinks it's better. It's like, yeah,
I know some people who think the book is better and kind of hate the film. It's not an unheard of position. I haven't read it, and I do like the film quite a bit.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of tough to argue with Stanley Kubrick when he's directed a movie. You know, he usually knows his stuff.
Yeah. The Stand was really good, I gotta say.
The Stand, yeah. They made a mini series out of that, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay.
Way back in the 90s.
But the book was beyond The Stand was, I think, probably his best work, in my humble opinion.
Next one, Tyler Schwabro. Right, Drinker, can you please repeat the following? Who washed Washington's white woolen underwear when Washington's washerwoman went west? I mean, like, should I do that as like
that
Sean
didn't
Connery?
seem hard.
Yeah. Who washed Washington's white woolen underwear when Washington's washerwoman went west? Oh well, it worked.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah, Cap saying, yeah, I think we asked this one already. 28 days later is much superior to 28 weeks later. Yes, it is. 28 days later and 28 weeks later, blood logic. Get a drop of zombie blood in your eye and you turn. 28 years later, blood logic. Be born by a zombie and you're fine. Pregnant zombies, really? It's the magic of the placenta, apparently.
It's not.
I mean, like, even if the placenta filtered all that stuff out, like, when the baby's born, like, how much blood has it got on it? Like, giving birth's a bit of a messy business, and surely, yeah.
I think it's kind of the Last of Us thing, where, like, oh, look, the baby's immune or got special powers or whatever.
Do you think it's because it's a girl, right? Do you think it's going to grow up to be the girl who's the key to everything?
Well, I think
they're absolutely
trying
to do shit with that, yeah.
Is what it's trying to do.
It's going to be the first superhuman.
Yeah. Snacks says, just watch Reign of Fire. Thanks for recommending. I didn't recommend that.
I did.
Oh, okay. Also, MauLer, in your avatar, what film reel are you actually looking at?
Currently, 28 years later.
Sure. RRTNZ, when Chuck Norris uses AI, Grok and ChatGPT ask him for answers. When Chuck Norris uses GPS, it asks for directions to places. Exactly. Chuck Norris holds all the cards. 1947, Jaeger breaks the sound barrier, the right stuff. They broke the sound barrier before that. They did it during World War II many times. Usually by uncontrolled descents into blowing up, but they can still do it.
The little details.
Yeah. Toxic Gamer says, hey fellas, what do you guys think about the phrase go woke, go broke? Do you think this is objective fact or is it opinion? Do you think it's more accurate to say go woke and eventually go broke? I mean, I would tend to phrase it, and it definitely doesn't roll off the tongue as well, go woke and have a much higher chance of going broke, because it's not an absolute rule, but
what a saying.
It tends to happen.
Look at misunderstand your audience, go broke, because there is a market for quote unquote woke entertainment. There's a market for quote unquote woke everything. It's just not always the market that business leaders think that it is. If you try and turn Bud Light into that, you will lose your market and go broke. But if you try and turn, like, I don't know, what would even be a good example of it?
Ben and Jerry's.
Ben and Jerry's, exactly. Ice cream can have as many opinions as it wants, as long as it tastes good.
Well, also, I think it's like fringe stuff. I really do think woke is fringe stuff, just like whatever political, as a centrist, I'm like, get tired of people on the fringes. And I don't know, I just think woke is so fringe, and that's why it doesn't work.
The smaller the company, the far more likely it is to go broke if it goes woke. So a perfect example would have been G4 TV, if anybody remembers the whole, the Creature Frosk, that whole debacle. Where she tanked G4 TV and they went woke, and that was the end. They were done because it was such a small company and they couldn't even deal with one backlash. Another example would be there's a wee video game company. They did Concord, and they no longer exist. You need to be go ahead, Drink.
Yeah, you had Dustborn as well. That was
that was funded by the government. You need to be a big company that can absorb the blows if you want to go woke and actually have some staying power. But if you really need your stuff to succeed, like if this next product has to succeed in order for the company to continue in existence, going broke is just a death sentence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Scruffy Pumpkin says they were all streaming his Hassan content nuke and got up and left, or in one case just got high during the whole thing, offering no commentary.
Yeah, so I saw someone tweet out that apparently he says in his video at one point that Ethan put out the nuke as a bait for them to all get trapped in so he could sue them, which I don't know if that's actually something he said. I find this all fascinating that he hates them for all the political differences they've all had and all like the crazy shit that's happened in the last few years, but he's gonna take them down for React videos. Like, all right, if you wanna.
Drinker and Bar, fun question since we are on the topic of Zed. How long would you last as Leon in Resident Evil 4? The events would follow the game. If you played the game, you retain that knowledge. Yeah, well, you can have the knowledge, but like you still have to be able to like shoot the guns and outrun boulders and stuff. So yeah, I think I'd probably last about 5 minutes and I'd get murdered.
I'm gonna die pretty quick, I think. I'm not Leon.
I don't think any of us are getting past that first giant super zombie.
Yeah,
first side of the fence.
It was a little weird to see Jimmy Savile as Nick Fury to introduce the 28 Days Later cinematic universe. How many spin-offs are we going to get? And will MauLer review Predator, Killer of Killers, since it's now canon?
So all the people I trust who have watched it have put me off watching it. So I'm not, you know.
I just want you to watch it so you can get angry.
I got a Jurassic World film coming up, Drinker. I got enough pressure, okay?
Hey, you've still got to watch Dominion. You haven't even experienced that.
Have you never seen Dominion?
No.
Oh, you lucky person.
But he's going to have to undo that luck, and he's going to force himself to actually watch it.
Which one is Dominion? What happens in Dominion?
It's the one with the giant, like the flying fire locusts and...
Yeah. It's the one you forget.
The laser guided velociraptors. The woman from what's it? She has laser guided velociraptors.
Was Dominion the last one?
Yes.
So far,
I couldn't watch that. I got 20 minutes in and I couldn't take anymore.
They bring back all the old cast and then proceed to just destroy them. It's what a movie! I can't wait to rewatch it.
It was painful.
I lost at least 20 IQ points watching it, and I didn't have that many to spare in the first place, so that was a bad experience. I did like this one as well, Master of Puppets. MauLer calling George R.R. Martin a 76-year-old blimp in reply to my super chat last week wasn't on my bingo card. I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah, David Gannon. Hail panel. LAO has taken to an area of space called the Communiverse, and it's a socialist paradise. That's just the tip of the shit iceberg. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, according to the review I saw from Film Theory, it's called the Communiverse. They were not subtle with this one. Jesus.
Were they as subtle as Last of Us?
That will probably be a bigger bomb than Snow White. That's going to make less money than Snow White.
No one's talking about it, though. It's weird.
It's a terrible... I mean, I haven't seen it. I have no interest in seeing it. But, you know, I live in a very blue city. I live in Boston. And I have a lot of liberal friends who saw it. None of them liked it. None of them liked it. Like, this is one of those areas where we've got to start learning lessons about what people actually want and stop imagining what they want, because it's crap. Like, why are they making this? Nobody wants it. Literally, not even the market they think exists wants this movie.
Yeah. Deval says, I was with 28 years later until they met the Navy Swede. From that on, I was out with even a few laughs. I was annoyed that the dad didn't chase after him. Exactly like what
I was just waiting for that scene, and it just never came. I was like, okay, fine.
There's a couple of bits with the dad, but he is just a bit of an idiot. It's the whole reason that you have to travel all across the country to find this doctor is that the dad was out foraging with some friends, saw the doctor doing something. Okay, it looked a bit weird, but the doctor, he actually describes him as waving at us like he was just cheerful, and then we got scared and ran away. And it's like, well, you're telling me that the only doctor left in basically the entire country, and it's not worth maybe trying to figure out if he's still good people. He might have valuable skills.
Yeah. I mean, it even goes back to like when they're clearing out that house, like on his first mission with his son. and they immediately start searching the place without even checking all the rooms, and then they're shocked when they find out like there's an infected in one of them. It's like, surely
So
that would be the
stupid.
first thing. Yeah, it's like they must have done this, or this guy must have done this 100 times.
Right.
You know, you would check the house, secure it, and then you can start ransacking all the drawers and cupboards and stuff for things. And yeah, things like that just made me think, is this really as smart as it wants us to believe? I'll do one more to finish here. Jaden Guthrie for 50 Australian dollars says, I love my physical media as I regularly shoot cinefilm on a 60s Bolex camera. Editing and developing film is a great experience. I ended up getting a supercut reel of Alien, 10-minute reel used to show to cheaters for promo. Super cool to project. That does sound pretty fucking cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, respect to you for sticking with physical media, sir. It's the way forward. But yeah, good stuff, man. And I probably am going to finish up there for tonight. It's been great having you guys on for this. And it's been nice to talk about movies that were a little bit more interesting than just the usual slop. So thank you for taking part in this. And thank you to everyone who's joined us for it and all the amazing super chats you've sent us. As we always do, we'll catch up with them in a few days on last orders. And yeah. The links to everyone's channels that's been a guest tonight are in the description. So please, if you're not following everyone already, then please do. But for now, that's all we got for today. So go away now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.